1. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, along with Louis Addeo-Weiss. Louis, how you doing tonight?
What's going on, Scott? We've got a lot to talk about.
We sure do, and our special guest is Bo Sheck, and Bo Sheck is a contributor for the South Florida Tribune. And, Bo, glad to have you on the program.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and I can't wait to weigh in.
Well, you're going to do that right now. We're going to figure that the Bo part of the program has a little bit of rant about the commissioner, right, Bo?
Yeah, so I'm a New Yorker, so I'm a Yankee fan. I just let you know that. And I am not very happy with what Rob Manfred is doing to the game right now. I believe he's thoroughly trying to ruin the game through and through, and he's doing everything. He's had a terrible week, and I can go through that piece by piece. And even especially as a Yankee fan, you know, we're supposed to be, everything's supposed to be amazing. It has not been good, and Rob Manfred is making it that baseball is not going to be most wonderful. I'm going to start off, I guess, by a couple different things that Rob Manfred's been doing. First off, is Rob Manfred, I'm not going to talk about the Yankees, I'll talk about the Mets, is we have the Wilpons are looking to sell. The Wilpons have been a disastrous owner, perhaps arguably one of the worst owners in sports, because they have the funds and they don't spend it. Sure, as you Florida fans know that. He just does not go over the top, and he just won't spend. Anyways, Wilpon would like to sell the team. He doesn't sell the team. He has this guy Cone on board, and Manfred comes in and bans Cone and throws Cone under the bus, and everybody knows, especially in New York, that it was definitely Wilpon who was the problem. The second thing I'm going to jump in on is Manfred's whole idea where he loves to make changes to the game. He just doesn't stop. He tries to again and again. He imposes all different kinds of rules to try to make the game more kid-friendly. It happens to be that, I'm going to be honest, some of the rules I do like, but he just goes on, and he doesn't stop with new rules every single year. There's a 3-batter rule. And then there's the electric umpires, and all different kinds of rules on the reviews. And that's another thing also that people don't like about Manfred, which I'm personally not anti the rules. I'm also don't mind if they have a think tank going on and they're trying to do those kind of things. But personally, I would like to see Manfred get to the root of the problem, which the root of the problem really is that he has a marketing problem. And while he's trying to change the game to make the game better, which in his mind, which it may work, but he really should be getting back to what it really is. Which the real problem is Manfred needs to look in the mirror and realize that he himself and the baseball, they're making baseball not good. They need to market their players correctly. They need to do all different kinds of stuff like that to make the game better. And stop trying to make baseball money by making the MLB.com blackout and restrictions to the clips online. All different kinds of things where he's trying to make money, and he's making marketing problems. I mean, another, like, all the baseball advertisements on TV, like the Viagra and stuff like that, they can't have normal commercials. Like NFL, they have fun commercials, fun, kid-friendly commercials. That's another problem I have with Manfred. Then, obviously, with Manfred, we have the Astros, which, as a Yankee fan, I'm going to be honest, I don't really care so much about the whole time-stealing scandal. I think it's overrated and overblown. And to be honest, I think a lot of teams were doing it. Perhaps even the Yankees were doing it. The Astros just took it a whole step further. But what Rob Manfred did is a complete joke on this. He only punished the two people who he was able to punish, which he punished Lunau and he punished Hinch. And then he made the team fire Cora and Beltran. He only punished the people who were out of sports. He gave everybody, only the people who weren't under the MLBPA, which he is totally petrified of. He didn't punish Jim Crane. He gave him a $5 million slap on the wrist when Jim Crane made at least $100 million winning the World Series, and his franchise went up to $500 million at least in winning. So $5 million is just a complete joke and a laugher. And I'm going to get into also with what Crane said today, which is also really infuriating to everybody involved. So Crane didn't get slapped at all. He goes and he gives a full ban, and then those guys get fired to the manager and the GMs, and then he gets full anonymity to all the players, which is another thing which is a little bit interesting because he didn't need to give anonymity. he had Fires, who was willing to let everybody know exactly what was going on in the public. But he had to give the players full, whatever they wanted they could do, and the players are running around scot-free. Now it's coming out with all the buzzers and stuff like that. Nobody even believes his report. His report is a joke. So that's that with Manfred. And the last thing with Manfred I'm going to get into, which my main thing is a major problem I have with Manfred, is he's trying to add 2 more teams to the playoffs. I was speaking to Lou. Lou is not a big fan of this either.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I'm not a big fan of this is because the season is a 162-game grind. And if you make 7 teams out of 15 in each, or 16 potentially, because we know that they're gonna be an expansion soon. But if you add 7 teams to the playoffs, then what you're doing is you're making the 162 games completely watered down. No one's going to be watching April and May games. There is no point of watching April and May games.
Good point.
Teams that are 500 in June can make the playoffs. So why would you watch April and May?
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfectly apt point. I mean, people like you and me who watch baseball year-round, obviously, like, with you being a Yankees fan, there's players on that team, say Frazier cracks the opening day roster and in what limited playing time he's going to have. We want to watch those games early to see how's his swing. Has the defense improved? Is the sun not in his eyes when he's playing in Fenway Park? I mean, I totally agree with you. And nobody has really made that point before, which I'm glad you did, about the ripple-down effects of kind of like desensitizing those early April and May games. So, again, I'm glad you made that. I totally agree with you, Bo. I freaking hate... I mean, look, I said earlier, as soon as the report came out about the suspensions, with Hinge being fired and Luno being fired by Crane an hour or so after, MLB released, their punishments levied on those 2 individuals, immediately right away I was just like, they did not do enough. Manfred is a clown, in my opinion. There's a million other... I will say the home run derby under his tenure has gotten a lot more interesting. If you really want to give him credit, if you want to look at both sides of the story, that's become more entertaining. But
I also give him credit for the second wild card. That was also genius.
Well, the second wild card was introduced in 2012. That was under Selig's reign. So I won't totally give him credit for that. You can call it the Lennon-McCartney effect if you want, if you really want to get all... analytical with it, but no, I mean, what he's doing right now, and again, I'll just further agree with you on this. Him and Tony Clark, and it's been known, they do not have a good relationship. That's why there was almost a strike at the end of the 2014 going to 2015 season when he took over, because their relationship was kind of disjointed. And, again, we didn't even mention this, Scott, the CBA expires after the 2021 season. So can you imagine with a lot of these like ridiculous changes that are going to be going on, more games too, you create that new playoff series, Bo and Scott, and more players can become susceptible to injury. I know that's very like trite and like overused, reasoning in this, but at the end of the day, people can get injured at any game, no matter when, and you play 162, add on top of the spring training and, the hours and hours of practice pregame. Another playoff series is just going to further tire players anymore. I mean, you better incentivize it if you're really going to employ this archaic and kind of like regressive, format into our playoffs. You better incentivize it for the players. And you know what? A lot of what you were saying resonates with what Trevor Bauer was saying. They need to market the players more. And, I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with anybody else who were to make that assertion, because baseball doesn't do the best job at marketing its players. It markets a lot very well, but there's more players that really need to get that name in the spotlight.
All right, well, let me point out a couple things to you. I'm not buying your theory about the injuries, with the expanded, because they've been playing a lot of them for a lot of years anyways. Now, you did make a point, though, and Bo probably touched on it a little bit, that just say hypothetically that new playoff series where the best team, has to wait it out, then you worry about rustiness, you lose your momentum, then you might have me there. I agree there. But the NFL has a bigger problem considering the physicality of the sport about the extra game, more so than baseball, because these guys here, they're used to playing an awful lot of games. With that said, Bo, I want to ask you something, obviously you don't really particularly like Rob Manfred, but what are your thoughts about Bud Selig?
So the big problem I have with Bud Selig had a tremendous love for the game of baseball. But his big problem was that he tried to protect baseball from the fans. Is that Bud Selig tried to put the steroids aside and tried to have it just go away. And the money was just too good for the money was too good for the owners, and everything was not good. And basically, by putting steroids under the rug for a couple of years, he made the problem a ton worse. And that is sort of the problem that I would go back to what Manfred has. Manfred is doing the same problem. He thinks he's trying to protect baseball from itself. Now, no one trusts him. Everybody believes the Astros have buzzers. My favorite team, the Yankees, we have Gary Sanchez insinuating that Altuve had a buzzer. Now, Rob Manfred's report said that the cheating stopped at the beginning of 2018. So why is Sanchez saying that they had a buzzer on when everybody said there's no buzzers? It's because nobody trusts baseball and nobody trusts their stupid report. It makes no sense. And Manfred trying to protect baseball, much like Selig, Manfred trying to protect baseball from itself is doing more harm than good. He should just come out and say what it is and punish them as much as he can and punish that fool Jim Crane who totally embarrassed the sport today. Maybe even force him to sell the team, but that's a different story. It's an embarrassment of what's going on, what Manfred is doing. And his biggest problem really is with Manfred, a different problem about Manfred. Selig at least does not have this problem. But Manfred has a problem where there's a problem, and he just decides to make a different solution to create a different problem. Or there's a problem with marketing, so let's add more playoffs. He's not understanding there's a problem with tanking, so let's put more teams into the playoffs. What he doesn't understand is if you add more teams into the playoffs, tanking is still going to work. What the Marlins are doing is genius. Why would you try to win? Why would you try to win and be mediocre when you can add and you can build your thought system and then sign players later on top of those good players you developed? So tanking still works. Adding two teams to the playoffs doesn't take away the fact that tanking and rebuilding still works. Manfred did not solve the problem at all. And another problem that Manfred does not foresee with his stupid 7-team rule is that, let's say my team, like the Yankees, they're not going to go sign a player like Cole. Why are they going to make a $300 million investment when they're already guaranteed to basically win 90 games and make the playoffs within the 17 playoffs? They're all guaranteed to get in. Why make a $300 million investment? It's just stupid.
All right, Bo, I wanted
to
ask you one more question real quick. We got about 3 to 5 minutes left, and that's this. So 3 minutes left. You and me saw the footage this morning. I woke up to seeing Alex Bregman almost like I was watching the movie American Psycho. I mean, he was as dead emotionally inside as Christian Bale's character was in that movie when I saw him. And the apologies issued by him, Crane, and Jose Altuve. First of all, Chris Russo on High Heat on MLB Network made a very apt point. Dusty Baker had no right being there. He's the figurehead of that team now, but he should not have been involved at all in that press conference because he was nowhere involved with that team in 2017. He was managing the Nationals, for Christ's sake. What is your opinion? What is your opinion on the quote, air quote, I'm saying air quote, Scott's watching me do this, apologies today from Bregman? Correa, I will applaud, was very good, very forthcoming and honest. But from Correa, Crane, and Altuve, also Verlander, hypocritical for everything he said. But give me your thoughts real quick as we wind up the segment on, the way that they kind of address the media today.
So surprisingly, Altuve hit the big home run off my pitcher Chapman to send them to the World Series. And Bregman's obviously been a big heel, and he loves to celebrate and all that. You'd be surprised to say I'm not even shocked that they gave a half-assed apology. It doesn't even matter to me that they made such a little apology. When they look at their owner, who's a billionaire, who's their owner, who's paying them $20 million a year, and he goes up there and he says it's debatable if it even helps us. Why do you want the players to even admit to say it's wrong? And the owner also said the players are good people, and it was just the leadership and the guidance which was the problem, throwing Hinch and Luna totally under the bus. Now, getting back, just to answer your question, I don't even care. It's the person who really bothers me is Jim Crane, the owner. I don't care about Bregman. I don't care about Altuve. It does help, yes, Correa being nice. It does help. Correa will probably be thrown out less because he came out there and he owned up on it. Mm-hmm. But I don't care about it. None of them admitted to the buzzers, which we all assume happened. So, in my opinion, they did what they needed to do, but it's all boiled down to their owner because they couldn't even admit to anything anyways because their owner said there's no problem. If once somebody has a child and somebody tells the child it's okay to do that, why do you want the child to the child is not going to apologize if their parent tells them it's okay?
All right, Bo, I want to wrap it up with this question. Mike Fiers was the whistleblower here. Do you think had he been awarded a World Series ring or been treated a little bit better on the outs, that he would have actually blown the whistle on these guys?
Well, he got a ring because he was on that team.
That's he did? Yeah, all right, but I thought that they left him off the postseason.
Yeah, I think he left him on the postseason roster.
Right, okay, well, that's fine. He got a ring, but left off the postseason. But, it's a sidekick. You left me off the postseason roster. Why not go ahead and blow the horn on you?
It doesn't help that you throw 85 and hit people in the face.
Well, that's beside the point.
Mike Fiers is clearly a jerk. And Mike Fiers, I still look at him as a rat, and Mike Fiers definitely broke the code of the locker room.
Okay.
So I don't look at him as a hero, and that's coming from a Yankee fan.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I don't look at him as a hero. He broke the code of the locker room. Now, that being said, he is a little bit of a hero because at the end of the day, everybody did go to Manfred, and Manfred did put shit under the rug for 2 years. That's another thing I didn't mention about Manfred, another thing that came out this last couple of weeks. Manfred knew about this going on for years, and he covered it under the rug until Ken Rosenthal blew it up. There was nothing. He would have continued shoving it under the rug, and he wouldn't have stopped. Mike Fiers is still a rat, and he's still a bad, and he's not even a good person. But that's a different story.
Yeah.
I think he's a little bit of a jerk. He threats and showed no remorse on it either. But Mike Fiers is a rat, and he came out because he didn't like the players. He probably didn't like the players because he's probably not a good person. That's what I think.
Okay, well, you know what?
And Derek Cole, who's on the Yankees now, said that he actually didn't cheat in 2018 and 2019.
Okay.
I don't expect him to announce it either because he's not a rat. Only rats rat.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, Bo, I enjoyed your rant, even though you're ending on a rat. So, meanwhile, all I can tell you, Bo, it's been great having you on the Sports Exchange tonight, and we appreciate everything you do to go ahead and tote the company.
Yeah, and before you go, do you want to plug your Twitter for us?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. First of all, thanks, Scott. Thanks, Louis.
No problem.
I want to say that, Louis reached out to me, and, I'm not much of a writer. So as you can hear right now, I'm pretty much more of a talker. But Twitter's all about writing and putting stuff out like that. And Louis said, you have some good thoughts. And I put some words together, and Louis knows how to patch it up. And, Louis is a great follow. And all you guys, you write wonderful. I try to read as many articles as I can, and they're all written amazing, very informative. And even some of them where I don't even know what sports you're talking about, I still read them anyways. It's very good. And yeah, I appreciate it. And obviously, you guys are there. You guys do a wonderful job. I appreciate it. I love reading your stuff.
Well, we appreciate you getting it out there. So, just with 10 seconds to go here, I believe your Twitter handle is @BoSheck, or is it @SheckBo?
It's @SheckBo. My name is Bo Sheck.
Okay.
My Twitter handle is @SheckBo, where you will see 90% of Yankee talk with smattered in making fun of the Knicks and saying how much of a joke the Giants are. And then I do follow the rest of baseball. So every once in a while I'll send out a baseball tweet because I do follow baseball. I am excited about baseball. I love baseball.
All right.
I love what the Marlins are doing. I really do.
All right, Bo. Running out of time, but we want to thank you for being on the Sports Exchange. It's been a pleasure talking to you tonight. Thank you, Bo.
We'll talk to you soon, man.
Pleasure was mine. Yeah, take care, Louis.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Bo. Have a good one.
Well, I got to tell you, Bo came as advertised.
Yeah, look,
he did.
I interact with him on Twitter all the time. I think we, at least we exchange a reply or I comment on one of his posts at least once every day, or if not every other day. And you know what? Working with him on stories has been really fun because, like me, he likes the numbers and he likes to take, he takes a very analytical approach with the way that he sees baseball, and he speaks to some pretty notable people. So he's a fantastic follow on Twitter. His thoughts are very informed, and he very well lays out everything that he has to say. So couldn't help but have a better guest to start the show tonight than him.
Well, it worked out well. Like I said, the one thing we always try to do is, for those individuals that make a solid contribution to the company, we certainly like to make sure they have a voice in the program
What's
as well.
your expression? You write it, you say it, right?
Yeah, you write it, you speak it.
There you go.
Say it, what's the difference? It's the same idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think one thing I've learned with this philosophy, though, Lewis, if you're going to come on here, you want to come in here as polished as you can. What better way to do it than to be able to put it in words so you ultimately do the best you can to be smooth around the air. I think that, to me, is a philosophy that we've built the company around, and one that will continue to build it as time goes on. So, you're definitely the one talented young guy, and I think the potential you have is just so unbelievable that I don't have to toot you. I've seen enough of your stuff to realize what's in front of me.
You don't go to a job interview without a suit and a resume, and you don't come on the Sports Exchange without doing your research and contributing to us before you come on.
Very good. Well, while we continue to talk, why don't you go ahead and give your Twitter a bit of a plug.
Slowly trying to grow my Twitter following. It's getting up there, interacting with more people talking sports on the air. But Addeo_Louis00 is my handle. If you want to reach me, follow me. While I interact with you, I follow back too. So.
All right. With that said, we want to welcome Charlotte Bat CEO Rick Curti to the program. Rick, thanks for being on the Sports Exchange.
Thanks for having me on here, guys. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. You know who I am, and you know who you're talking to. And Mr. Addeo-Weiss is ready to take your best shots.
All right.
Already.
No Brad Osmus, Mike Scioscia talk today, though. Let's leave those in the. Let's leave them in the shoebox. We'll talk about that another day.
All right. Sounds good.
So, Rick. Let's hear your weekly Rick rant. What are you going to go on about today?
I think the cheating Astros should be banned, and I think they're worse than Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson, and their apologies were ridiculous, and they're only sorry because they got caught. And then the asinine owner of the Astros had the audacity to say that, well, yeah, we cheated, but it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Well, if it didn't matter, then why'd you fire your manager and why'd you fire your GM? So he's an idiot for saying that. The Astros are an idiot. Altuve's an idiot. And honestly, they just need to vacate the World Series championship, leave it vacant, just like they did in '94 when they didn't have a World Series. And they should just leave it like that. There should be no champion when the Astros won it.
Rick, you're an interesting fellow. I'd say a rather uncompromising one. And I want to read you a quote I read on watching Intentional Talk today. Obviously, it's one of the I'd say the lighter shows on MLB Network, but Chris Rose is on there and is a name that I respect from the Best Damn Sports Show. He also did a lot of Fox NFL Sunday. And, they interact with a lot of players. If you watch that show during the season, it's a lot of interviews pregame, talking to guys, kind of loosening up the nature a little bit. But I want to read you a quote that he said to co-host Kevin Millar. Give me your thoughts on it without, ripping it up like a piece of paper you don't care about. So he said he had to say this about what he plans to interact with Houston later this season because they'll try to be on the network. So he said this: I'm pissed off because I like a lot of these guys on this team being the Astros, and I want to like them, but I hate what they did, kind of like a catch-22. I don't know the next time when I see Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, George Springer, or Carlos Correa, guys I really like on this team. I really want to go up and shake hands with them, but again, I don't like what they did. How do we, and I believe he's being general speaking to sports fans and just the baseball community in general, how do we deal with that? Give me your answer to that, and then Scott, I want an answer to that question from you as well.
No problem.
Okay.
Go ahead, Rick.
Well, I wouldn't even talk to them. I would just, if they said hi to me, I'd just look at them up and down and walk away. That's what I would do and say, you know what, you don't deserve my high. You don't deserve me being nice. What you did was ridiculous. You're cheaters. You're lucky you still got it. You're lucky you're still in playing. You should be done. You should be kicked out of the league. You should be banished forever. And you're making millions of dollars and you're sorry. No, you're sorry because you got caught. So I look at Altuve, all 5'1" of him, look up and down at him like he was crazy, and just look at him and say, I just walk away. I have nothing to say to you. That's what I would do.
Scott?
Well, the bottom line is I don't think you put a asterisk by anything, but the reality of this situation, Rick, is that, to me, I think the whole thing's just an outright debacle. It's getting too much publicity and it's getting too much overkill. Well, I say that the Kobe Bryant thing had too much overkill, but I guess in a day where you have social media and 9 million different media things on the planet, what do you expect? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I'm sick and tired of hearing about it, but unfortunately, it's going to make a lick of difference anyways, whether I like it or not.
True. I understand, but, like I said, they're so stupid and arrogant that they didn't think that they're going to get caught. I mean, this isn't like stealing signs from the catcher and all this stuff. This is like high-tech fraud that they committed. I mean, and during the World Series, I mean, this is absolute fraud. We haven't seen anything like this since the 1919 Black Sox, so
yeah.
I mean, this is like, and this is the last thing Major League Baseball needed. They're still not over the steroids, the attendance is still been down for the last 5 years. And so they got major problems in Major League Baseball. The last thing they needed to hear was a team winning the World Series. And, oh, by the way, we cheated. I mean, we committed fraud. And now we're going to apologize for it. And it's just, hey, too little, too late. But that owner, man, I'm telling you.
Jim Crane, man.
I just shake my head with them saying that it wouldn't have mattered. But yet you fired your manager and you fired your GM. And you admitted what you did was wrong, but at the same time, it's like, well, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. That's just take responsibility.
Yeah, Manfred sweeping this under the rug to me reads as one of the most overt defiances of baseball's moral compass that I think we've ever seen. I mean, you can agree with me on this. I know we disagree on a lot, but, it's good when we can come to agreements on something. Our Thanksgiving dinner, I guess, if you want to call it that. Baseball is a game of adjustments, right? I guess any sport is, or pretty much anything that you do in life. And when you make an adjustment, you want to kind of adhere to that adjustment you made so you continue to see things happen the way you envision them. With Pete Rose being suspended or, banned from baseball for life, wouldn't you think that if something of this nature were to happen again, that it's not even how one particular person should act. It's the universal truth of what you did is so abhorrently wrong that you should not be allowed in this game again. Manfred not banning these guys for life is again, it's archaic. It's any adjective you want to use that's bad and degrading, I think deserves to be thrown upon Houston. Now, look, remember in 2015 when Jose Bautista hit that home run off of Sam Dyson in the division series and he flipped the bat, and it's one of the most iconic images, I guess, maybe the most iconic image of the 2010s for baseball fans, right? And the next year right, but what I'm saying is this. Next year, Bautista slides into second base next year. Rougned Odor sucker punches him like a former Cassius Clay. We all know what his name wound up being back in the day, and it was a big thing. The point I'm getting to here is there's a carryover. The amount of controversy that's already surrounding Houston, the amount of crap that's going to be shoveled in their face this season. Today was just the first day of it because pitchers and catchers reported yesterday. So, they're there. Everyone's getting ready. But it's going to be ugly, man. I'll be surprised if Altuve doesn't have a black eye and at least one eye each at the end of April, even spring training, man. It's going to be ugly. And you know what? I'm not somebody who wishes ill on others, but some people just kind of need to get their just desserts.
Well, I think the one thing that's getting lost in this whole thing that both you guys aren't even bringing up, okay, was back during the steroid era, especially with Sosa and McGuire, that Bud Selig kind of let it look the other way.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, don't sit here and tell me you weren't selling a few more ballpark franks, okay, for batting practice and all those merchandise sales that you had. What about a couple of those souvenirs that you had going out there and all the extra revenues? Well, nobody's giving that money back any more or less than any team that forfeits the championship in the NCAA. Well, you didn't win it. You got to vacate, although I think the NCAA, to me, is the most absurd creature on the planet anyways. But I want to get off on that. But hold on. So my thinking is this, okay? What happened with the steroid guys, and you sold all that money, what was spent on food, merchandise, showing up earlier. To me, this is eerily similar to that in different ways.
That's an excellent correlation, but I think it asserts a double standard where I think it's a very valid, comparison in context of this, because what happens in both instances, Houston and Major League Baseball made, a surplus of money. They made hundreds of millions of dollars. But
Billions.
Exactly. But Rick and Scott, is that really worth jeopardizing baseball's moral compass? I don't think so, and I think that's one of the things that makes baseball special. Yet, we throw at hitters, or we don't ban guys for life when they do something. I mean, this is almost baseball's equivalent to murder with what they did. It's
Louis. Can I ask you?
Care.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Shoot.
Rick, I got to ask Louis this question, okay? You and I are older, and he's a much younger guy. So does anybody really give a damn about morals these days anyway? Hold on. Okay.
I'll answer that in a minute.
Yeah, I'm sure you will, because I'm going to finish my thought for the next 59 seconds, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Does anybody really give a damn about morals? Really?
Yeah.
Maybe you.
No, but I think everybody on Twitter who's, kind of like ostracizing Houston, and Rick kind of did it himself. He kind of took a fire extinguisher to them to start his segment. There is an underlying, maybe because the word isn't uttered in itself, but thematically there is still a sense of underlying moral ethics that go on with you don't bet on baseball, you don't gamble on baseball. And those are underlying moral things that we understand inherently because we know right from wrong. Our parents taught us it. An owner who doesn't give a crap and a half about what his team does as long as he makes money is jeopardizing baseball's moral compass.
All right, so let me ask you a question, okay? Back in the day when Rose got banned for life, nowadays you've got casinos in every state in the country, whether it's Indian casinos or some of the major ones. You can't sit here and tell me that a lot of guys aren't betting on baseball, because they probably are and nobody's talking about it unless they're on camera, but now you don't know what extent. There's online gambling and all that. It just so happens back in the day Rose was so obvious doing it, and it didn't hurt that Bart Giamatti dropped dead, okay, so therefore Faye Vincent had a hard on him, and then Zelig and now Manfred. So I'm not telling you that Rose, I'm not condoning what he did.
No, absolutely
but you
not.
can't sit here and tell me a lot of that baloney doesn't happen, even though nowadays, forget about morals, Louis, okay? They don't exist anymore. Now, do I think a lot of these players on the Astros, okay, have bullets on their chest? Yeah. I wonder how strong these helmets are, because when they take that thing called 108 stitches, okay, is that what it is? and chuck it right in on the back of your head, do you think they're going to need Tylenol 10 to get rid of the problem, or ibuprofen, or any cotton-picking drug that will alleviate the pain? No, I don't think so. So take morals, Mr. Addeo-Weiss, and flush them down the toilet, because they aren't there anymore. What do you think, Curti?
I agree. It's all about money. Major League Baseball doesn't care. They want to sweep this under the rug, just like Selig wanted to sweep up the steroids. And the only reason they did something about steroids is because it wasn't Selig who did anything about it. It was Congress that subpoenaed all these idiots, especially Sammy Sosa, who forgot to speak English, and told them, if you don't fix it, we will. And boy, they sure fixed it. And Bud Selig has the audacity, and for him to be in the Hall of Fame is a joke to me. To me, he's the worst Hall of Famer in there, and he gets credit for cleaning it up. You didn't clean anything up. You try to cover it up. And Manfred, I'm really disappointed in him, because he gave all these idiots immunity, and so they're not going to be punished. They're not going to be banned. They're probably won't even get suspended, and they're going to get all their millions and millions of dollars. And so I don't think people like Altuve and the rest of them, I don't think they really care. I just think they just did it just to save face. But they honestly, deep down inside, they're probably laughing right now, just, thinking about, like, yeah, we got away with it. We kept our championship. We kept our money. We're not banned. We're not going to get punished. Yeah, the Astros organization will, but we didn't, and they just need to be gone. Corey needs to be gone. And, this is no different than Pete Rose betting on baseball, or Shoeless Joe Jackson, being involved with a 1919 gambling. So it's no different. It's no different like Bonds and McGuire and all those cheaters. They should be banished too, because they compromise the game. Because steroids has a lot to do with making you a better player. Barry Bonds would not be the all-time home run king without steroids.
That's true.
He would not be.
If there is any morals to be said about this, and I want to make sure you highlight it, bold it, whatever, if it's the fact that the Baseball Writers of America are keeping these guys out for a long time, if not permanent. like Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens aren't in the Hall of Fame, and they don't have a whole lot more time on the ballot. And if by chance they do if they don't get elected by the writers, I don't think they're getting elected at all by the veterans. So these guys are running out of lives. Even Morris ran out of lives at 9, and these cotton-picking clowns here, if they don't get voted in, they're not getting in.
Now, you raise a good point, though, Scott, and I want to ask you and Rick about this question. Jose Altuve is on a Hall of Fame trajectory, but I think he's still in the peak of his career, although last year was a bit of a down year. What is the Hall of Fame case going to look like for these guys in 15, 20 years when they go? Carlos Beltran retired after 2017 and was the ringleader on that team, according to what certain reports are saying, although they've fluctuated from Cora to, Bregman to Springer to, everybody.
Well, to answer your question, this isn't a Hall of Fame situation. If their careers are good, the numbers are there, and then perhaps championships are there, they're going to get in.
But
hold on, let me finish. You asked me a question, and I'm going to answer it for you.
I didn't finish it, but go ahead.
Well, all right, but go ahead and finish it, then I'll tell you what I think.
Beltran was somebody who was on the borderline of the Hall of Fame before. You agree with the assertion that championships are important. I think that's the highest team goal that you can achieve, absolutely.
Right.
Rick, Scott, and Rick, I'll let you answer it first because I feel bad leaving you dormant on your segment. How is Carlos Beltran's case for Cooperstown affected when the only World Series that he wins comes on the team in which he was the ringleader, I guess the Al Capone or the Don Corleone of the entire scandal?
He was never a Hall of Famer to begin with, so he's not going to get in, period, now. So to me, it was the Hall of Fame is the Hall of Very Good. He was a great player, but he's not a Hall of Fame player. I don't care what his war, I don't care what his whatever you young people like to call these things. Who cares about that? He was not a Hall of Famer. He's definitely not getting in. He should be banished like Cora and all the rest of the Astros, like the rest of the steroid users. So he ain't getting in. And the Astros, Altuve, I don't care if he hits 400. He ain't getting in.
But do you think the voters will, in 5 years, sure, dust settles a little bit, but Bond's been on the ballot now 8 years, and he's still really not getting much support other than 60% of the people. Enough to stay on, but not enough to merit the induction. Do you think writers are going to use that against them when they become eligible?
Absolutely. They have to. These were, Beltran was like maybe a borderline. With the Hall of Fame how it is now, you probably get 100% of the votes now because it's the Hall of Very Good, as I like to call it. And how Fred McGriff's not in the Hall of Fame is a travesty, in my opinion. But he ain't getting in. He was not a Hall of Famer to begin with, and he's definitely not a Hall of Famer now. And they should have a special section called the cheater section and have Bonds and McGuire and Sosa and Canseco and have all the Astros there. Their championship ring should be there. Pete Rose should be there. Shoeless Joe Jackson be there, and say this is the Hall of Shame, and don't be in this section. So they should all shame them.
Yeah, put it in like a broom closet or something.
Yeah, and don't forget Roger Clemens either. And to talk about Fred McGriff, okay, I've always wondered why, and I've had lots of baseball experts on. Nobody knows it more than Lewis. Okay?
Well, Tony DeMarco said, too, that it came from
that's
lack
where I
of
was
a
going
team.
with it. Right, yeah.
He moved around
exactly,
a lot.
that's where I was going. Well, it doesn't matter, but I agree with everybody. I think McGriff should be in, regardless of how anybody thinks they're going to justify the line.
Yeah, he played the game right, a good guy, a good man, no scandals, and just did his job. And this guy doesn't even get mentioned, and yet Barry Bonds, the biggest cheater, the biggest jerk of all of baseball. 60% people are like, well, it doesn't matter if he took steroids. Obviously, yeah, it does, because obviously he hasn't played the game. Steroids has a big, big impact on your numbers. He would not be the home run king without steroids. He would not break all these records. He would not have had all that great years without the steroids. McGuire, too. Sosa was like a little toothpick that nobody cared about, and then he started, juicing it up, and look at him now, and he's so crazy now. He's white now.
Yeah, he's going through his Michael Jackson bad era phase.
I'll tell you what.
He looks like he looks ridiculous.
Let me tell you what, Rick. You talk about Sosa, okay? You promote Gastonia baseball. You're involved with Gastonia, right? You spend a lot of time. I worked with Sammy Sosa in 1987 as his director of public relations for the Gastonia Rangers. How do you like that? I know if anybody knows between you cotton-picking clowns And I like calling you guys clowns. I'm going to have to market this as Bozo and Oopsie. Don't know which one to actually target you. But anyways, I'll talking to you two clowns here. I know how skinny Sammy Sosa was because I worked with that guy in 87 for a team that lost over 90 games and produced 10, 12 major leaguers, manager, coaches included. So, yeah, I guess you could say that Sammy probably had a little bleach job on his skin because that's what it looks like to me. I don't know if he used Clorox or what are the other bleaches that are out there. But he definitely doesn't look like the way he came out of Mama's, you know what? So
yeah, he's the baseball equivalent of Michael Jackson. Vitiligo is a terrible thing.
Yeah, Michael Jackson. Let's bring up that Detroit reference. I was waiting for that one, Addeo-Weiss.
Gary, Indiana, but yeah, Motown.
Wow,
for
whatever.
Sure.
He is Gary, Indiana is one thing. Even my beloved was born in Indiana, and she's known for her Wisconsin thing.
Hey.
So she's got a birth certificate in Indiana. Well, she's a Wisconsin girl. Me, well, you know what?
Sometimes it's not where you come from; it's where you really make your mark too. So
well, that's true. But I can tell you right now, anybody were to go back to my hometown of Detroit, Michigan, and Herman Kiefer Hospital, if I were you, for those individuals that want to go after my birth certificate, now you can get them online. I would advise you to go in with a bulletproof vest big enough, which is bigger than any bricks that you can have, where they used to have take down that wall in East and Western Germany. That's it. You're going to need bricks there.
Yeah,
getting a little out of it, yeah, I don't really care at this particular point. But no, you guys touched on some pretty interesting points. So I guess the biggest question is right now between you two guys, who's Bozo and who's Oopsie?
I guess I'll be Oopsie because
I'm Pennywise.
Well, no, you got to choose between Bozo and Oopsie. I don't care about Pennywise.
Oh. I want to be Clarence the Clown from Howdy Doody Show.
Well, all right, but that's not one of the choices. But, you know, we'll go ahead and...
We'll work on that, though.
I don't even know who the other one is.
Well, Bozo was somebody that was brought up in my town. So, yeah, all right. You guys will have to think of a clown combination, and we'll start marketing your segments about what clown versus what clown, and everybody that's into the circus will get to know every time you two clowns come on every Thursday. Okay, they'll know who to track. So we're going to work on some of that beautiful marketing thing. So what other two things you got clowns have going on for the last few minutes?
Well, we'll see what happens with baseball. The Red Sox still don't have a manager.
Well,
no, Renicky was named their manager.
Yeah, Ron Renicky was actually named manager.
And I want to talk about that for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because Ron Renicky, in my opinion, you know, the investigation now, I understand Houston is still very much pretty, like it's the number one trending thing on Twitter right now. It's other than the new Justin Bieber album that's going to drop, but that's a pop culture thing for another day. The Astros or the Red Sox were still implicated in a sign stealing scandal the next year. It's like they just come in bunches, right? It's like you get a scandal, right? It's like Oprah. But Renicky apparently had no involvement, and Boston was smart to name him the interim guy until their findings were done, and this investigation is going to go on through spring training. I thought he did a tremendous job with the Milwaukee Brewers right after they acquired Sean Markham and Zach Greinke. He had a young Ryan Braun on that team. Right. Renicky, to me, is one of the more respected, you know, members, coaches in baseball. He was on the 2018 Red Sox team. So he, again, Garrett Cole came out and said today at his spring training down in Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, he didn't know what Houston was doing in 2018, even though they said the cheating stopped. Renicky may be in that boat, but he never really strikes me as a guy who kind of coerces with people like that, or at least involves himself in shady practices. I think Boston did a good job. And you know what? I said this last week when we talked, Rick. I think Boston, minus, their issues that they're going to have with an off-injured starting rotation, Renicky's the kind of guy that's going to – this team's still going to win 80, 85 games this year. I think that's still a pretty good team on paper.
Rick, I hate to say this, okay, because I got to deal – I actually have to agree with my young clown, although I should say he's my pupil. But you know what? With all due respect – Ron Renicky was an excellent choice. If you go with the Milwaukee Brewers, for God's sakes, and you have a lot more money to work with some of the players, I think that was definitely a pretty strong hire by the Red Sox. What do you think, Rick? It's okay to agree with this kid once in a while, even though I know you make a living out there chopping everything.
Hold the pie back, dude. Don't throw it in my face the way most clowns would.
Ron Renicky did. I know, you guys make him sound like he's the Pope. He could be the biggest cheater of them all. Also, and it's like Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy looked like a nice guy, but he wasn't a nice guy, and so we don't know what's going on with Ron Renicky. They made him an interim, not the manager. So to me, they don't have no manager.
Yeah, but the amazing part about Yeah, but here's
Once
the
his
amazing.
investigation's over, we'll see what happens. But I don't. Do I think his hands are all clean on this and he didn't know anything? Give me a break, okay?
Yeah.
You wash your hands, you still have germs. Again, he was on that team, so some of that residue is there. But so far, early findings have shown there hasn't been much evidence of him being super involved. And you know what? He's got 29 years of coaching experience. That matters. And he's been a successful manager before. I believe he won 96 games his first year with the Brewers and took them all the way to the NLCS in 2011. But I mean, the guy knows what he's doing, and I think he's a respected individual. And you know what? He's a very laid-back kind of guy. I think that will work well in New England because even though Cora is now vilified in the world of baseball and maybe just in sports in general, he handled the Boston media really well. And you know what? Last thing I'll say it again. I think Renick's a good guy for a job right now.
Well, here's the thing I'll say about that hire, okay? He is there for a year. He has a chance to win that job outright with a pretty good year. Mm-hmm. He really does. So, I'll tell you, this is one I have a good feeling about. Can he win 80, 85 games? It just depends on if the additions and how that Mookie Betts trade plays out.
Yeah.
And those are things. But I guess we'll button it up with this. We have another couple of minutes to go here. That when I look at the fact that Dusty Baker is a calming influence for the Astros, and I do feel, guys, that was a really, really, really good hire. I think the Ron Renicky one could be a much better hire than most of us think. And both teams went with veteran managers is what they did.
Mm-hmm. Good
and
point.
again, if you can win with the Milwaukee Brewers, then you got a puncher's chance with the Red Sox.
Well, don't put down the Brewers. I mean,
I'm not, but the reality is when
Small
you talk
market,
about, well, yeah, that's where I'm going with this. Let's face it, if you can win in a small market town, then there's no doubt in my mind that he should have a few more resources to work with.
Yeah.
It's just a question is that some of the other questions and answers are going to be answered over the course of 162-game season. That's the thing we're going to find out soon enough. Any closing thoughts on that, Rick?
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see if he's all this innocent. So, to me, he's guilty by association. So, we'll see what happens. I don't know. It's I would have made him if you think he's that, his hands are that clean, you would have made him the manager, not some interim manager. So, they're still doing their investigation. And who knows? I mean, we don't know how I don't know Ron Renicky, but, I find it hard to believe that he didn't know nothing of this when he was there. I just find that hard to believe. So we'll see what happens. I don't know.
All right, Rick, you got about a minute and a half to plug yourself any way, shape, or form. Go ahead and do it.
Well, if you guys want to contact me, I'm at charlottebatsbaseball@gmail.com. Our website is www.charlottebats.com. Sign our petition. As you guys may not know, I'm trying to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte, North Carolina. It's something I've been working on for the past about 5 years now. So just go on there, sign a petition, and get the movement going. And no Altuve to Charlotte, ever.
I don't think any other town wants him right now. I don't even think some Mexican League team would take him right now. Again, you're messing with the morals of the sport, and I know it's been done before, and you can say brushbacks do that too, but yeah, I don't ever see Altuve rocking a Charlotte Bats uniform ever.
No, he'll be banished from North Carolina, and he won't even make a little league team, even though he's 4'2".
Oh no, so, I'm not gonna criticize his physical features, but
he's done. He has that Napoleon complex. I think that's his problem. But he's done. The rest of the Astros are done, and that owner, he needs to sell that team and go away because what he said was so offensive and so ridiculous, and he needs to sell the team. And maybe no one Ryan could buy the Astros.
So, Rick, how can people contact you on Twitter?
Oh, I'm at Charlotte Bats Baseball on Twitter, and I'm also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. And I also have a personal page, R. Curti. So you can contact me on any of those places, and I will get to you. I'm on there every single day.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, you guys both, you have to find out what clown you are, and then we're going to start marking a clown versus clown every Thursday night.
Pagliacci?
Huh?
Pagliacci.
Well, you have to spell that one.
It's an opera, but a clown.
All right, well, find me a clown, and we know I won't have any trouble finding what clown you are.
I'm the stat clown.
All right, whatever. Yeah, well, that is appropriate, the stat clown. I like that one.
But all right, Rick, always good having you on the show, man. We'll speak to you soon.
Well done, Rick. Have a good night. Appreciate it. And Louis, you did a great job tonight as well, pal.
Take care.
All right, good night. Okay, stat clown. So, you want to own that? Are we gonna?
Well, I don't want it to be trademarked because I don't want my face to be photoshopped with a red nose and like I'm Rudolph. Except I got white paint on my face and I look like I sell hamburgers for a living. So I mean, whatever. I'll take it. I'll take what I can get.
It doesn't matter. It's all in fun. The one thing you're getting smarter about is you understand we're in the entertainment business, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So how can they find us here now that you have
they can? You can follow the South Florida Tribune at Tribune South on Twitter. Slowly creeping up there on the follower count. You can also follow Scott on Twitter at Scoop3333. Again, the 1-3 for the number of World Series the Yankees won in Jeter's tenure there. If you want to, yeah. 5 3s there, and then you can follow me, Addeo_Louis00 on Twitter, and go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. Read our content on there. For music fans, we have some music coming out tomorrow. I have a piece coming out which should be posted tomorrow morning or afternoon or night, whenever we can get it up there. Peak your musical taste buds a little bit, see what you're into, give my piece a read, check out the music I'm recommending, and yeah, I mean, we're not talking just sports on there, so there's a bevy of topics we're talking about on there. Scott, you want to talk a little bit about those?
Well, I want to go over a recent development that we were able to work on earlier in the week. Not only can people follow us on www.southfloridatribune.com, but for those individuals that want to go ahead and look for the abbreviations, www.sflatribune.com or sfltribune.com. Any of those three sites would go ahead and lead you to the material, so that's important as well.
Yeah, it's important. Secure those domain name, kids.
Right. Well, not only that, it's just another way to make sure that everything that we've done can be accessible to more ways than one. Mm-hmm. And that was the logic behind what we were trying to do. And, of course, we're at Tribune South on Twitter. And if you want to follow the broadcast, as we mentioned before, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Podcast Addict, and Deezer. So there's a lot of different ways to go ahead and access us. And we have a Facebook page. We're all over the map. We have Instagram, which I'm not as big as some of you millennials are, but you know what? I don't take as many pictures anyhow. But
social media is the modern opiate of the masses. But you know what? It's what drives content, and it's what puts food on people's plates and tables at night. So
it does. But meanwhile, the stat clown, is going to be doing some We'll be doing some college basketball. This will be your second college basketball game in as many weeks.
I'll be switching out my cleats for some short shorts, maybe a Larry Bird kind of shorts. I'll be walking around there. I'm just not a ginger, but I'll try to look good on the court. But no, in all seriousness, I am covering Nova Southeastern against Florida Southern on Saturday, and we will have a game story written up for that. Check out the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel as well. I know you can plug that later in the show as well. But Scott will be doing an interview with head coach
Jim Crutchfield.
Yeah. So, I mean, we got a lot of exciting stuff planned. We got, some big games we're going to be doing later in the year. So you're going to Arizona soon, I know that.
Oh, yeah.
So you got a full schedule of things on your plate right now.
Yeah, I've got a lot of projects, that's for sure. And as time goes on, the greatest part about having you as editor is I know that a lot of the editorial aspects will get covered, so I can focus on getting the word out on the road and on the streets, whether it's nationwide or etc. So it's important that we try to make sure that we have a brand name that everybody knows, even though the South Florida Tribune is regional to some extent. It's also national, because when you look at the fact that online publications are becoming more common and that your big daily newspapers are unfortunately dropping by the wayside, what else can I tell you?
It's a different era. I mean, digitalized things, it's environmentally sound to have less newspapers as far as like physical media is concerned.
Right.
But, because everything is electronic nowadays. So you could still, the New York Post is never going to go away, right? I mean, you'd
like to think that's the case. But now I hear there's problems down here in Miami with the Miami Herald.
All of that content is just going to become electronically published.
Well, it is. And with no disrespect to some of the other ones in the area, the Palm Beach Post, a long time ago when I went out there, has done away with their printing department, so it's all digital. Whether it's the Palm Beach Post, the South Florida Sun Sentinel, they're all going digital.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of jobs are being compromised because of the unfortunate new wave of what's going on.
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, once the boomer generation, that generation, as far as like number of people goes down, and I hate saying that because, come to terms with your own morality, but once a lot of those people go away, I think that's when you're really going to see it start to hit a lot harder in the media industry as far as print media is concerned, because you're not going to have as many people reading the papers anymore.
All right, well, with that said, Louis Addeo-Weiss did a great job. We also want to welcome South Florida contributor David Levin to the program. And before we bring David on, the one thing I should point out to a lot of folks is on the South Florida Tribune, we are also supported by Reuters, who also brings our national news and sports as well. So we want to make sure that you get everything from not only that, but as well as the weather. So we're a very multidimensional. We're able to put our broadcasts on. So with that said, Louis, well done tonight, and we'll see you on Saturday for Nova Southeastern University and Florida Southern.
And before I go, David, hope you're doing well. Get ready for baseball season. And, we'll cover some basketball. You'll hear my voice again on Thursday.
There you go.
All right, David.
Louis is alive and well. All right, with that said, okay, David, welcome back to the Sports Exchange. We're going to talk a little bit of football. I know we've talked a little bit of a lot about baseball here at the beginning of the program, but we're going to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. What's going on in Northern Florida, David?
First of all, guys, thanks for having me on tonight. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Besides the heat, another hot day here. All is really quiet on the Jaguar front as far as what's going on inside the building. But I know that we had talked earlier. We have a new quarterback coach. Ben McAdoo was hired to fill the shoes that Scott Milanovic had held for the previous few years. He left to go to the CFL, where he is the head coach of the Edmonton Eskimos. It's a curious hire for me, although I really do like it. I know we talked a little bit about it. I thought that McAdoo had just as much of a chance as anybody else to be named the offensive coordinator, and of course that went to Jay Gruden. But this is a curious situation where the Jaguars are bringing in another head coach to serve as a position coach. I guess that the belief is that this is a one and done. They got to do everything they can to win football games. So Doug Marrone is doing his due diligence to find the best possible candidates out there to fill these coaching positions.
Well, ever heard of Desperation 101?
Well, I wasn't going to say that, but yeah, so there's a little bit of that. There's truth to that, definitely.
You weren't going to say that? Well, I did it for you.
Yeah. I think it's just like we lauded the Jay Gruden move. And by the way, I remember now we were talking about it. It was Scott Linehan.
Okay.
We were talking about that we were ranking potential candidates. Remember, when we went to 1, 2, 4. I had thought maybe Linehan would be offered a chance to be the quarterback's coach, which I thought made sense given the fact that the Jaguars have two different styles of quarterbacks with Nick Foles and Gardner Minshew. But this almost makes too much sense for me, and I'll tell you what. McAdoo was a big part of Eli Manning's success while he was in New York, first as the offensive coordinator and then as the head coach. Eli Manning, in stature and ability, as far as, he's a pocket quarterback, he's a statue back there. He has no mobility whatsoever. He's a lot like Nick Foles. Jay Gruden has been with two stops, first in Cincinnati and then in Washington, where he has he has had the chance to coach quarterbacks with more mobility. RG3, he worked with Kirk Cousins, and he had the chance to work with Dwayne Haskins, before he was fired. This is, I guess what we're going to say here is they're covering all their bases, because they're not tipping their hand as to what they want to do with the starting quarterback yet.
Okay. Well, let me just mention this to you, David. Just so you know, Scott Linehan has been recently hired by the LSU Tigers.
Well, then there goes that.
As an assistant coach. Well, when I'm not out there pounding the streets, I am out there gathering some information every now and then. But he's just been recently hired by Ed Orgeron to coach the LSU Tigers. So, just an FYI.
How about this? I'm pretty sure he will enjoy a better season at LSU than the Jaguars will enjoy in 20.
Boy, if that's not an understatement, then I don't know what the word means.
I'm taking a guess here, but anyway, there's a connection to McAdoo because of his relationship with Coughlin prior to him replacing Coughlin in New York, and there was some speculation last year that he might be a candidate that might be brought in to help with the offense. There was stuff all over. He was seen in an airport. He was in North Florida, and nothing was ever confirmed or anything like that. But there's going to be that lingering connection between McAdoo, the guy who was successful under Coughlin, and then the guy who replaced Coughlin, and then the guy who failed after Coughlin. But I think that when it comes to quarterbacks, he's pretty good at what he does. And I also think that there are times when coaches are better being a position coach or a coordinator than they are running the whole show. And maybe this is a situation similar for both Gruden and McAdoo, where all they have to do is focus on one situation, and they can be very successful at it.
Well, all I can tell you is Eli Manning, when McAdoo decided to bench him, that earned him a quick exit out the New York Giants store.
Right.
You don't bench a guy like Manning. And, of course, he took the wrath of what happened there. And that I believe in my mind that's what McAdoo is going to be known for more than anything, was the guy that actually benched Eli, and then he lost his job shortly thereafter.
And I agree. There's a cloud of dust that goes with him.
You think?
You like that, huh? There's, sometimes I crack myself up,
Wow, shoot! I thought I cracked you up there. Oh my goodness! But that's all right.
Fine, but I just tend to, when you look at, because we sat there and we watched it.
Right.
When you see the coaching staff now, and I'm talking specifically offense, because nothing was done to the defense. And at some point, you and I will really discuss what's that going to do to the Jaguars.
Right.
When you look at what he has to work with, and Marone knows essentially he's a dead man walking if he can't fix it. He's done a pretty good job of going back, I guess, to the well and reassessing what he's doing, which leads me to believe maybe he was constrained in bringing in personnel. Maybe that's a possibility over the last 2 years. Remember, everything in that building had to have Coughlin's seal of approval before it was allowed to happen. I think there's hope, and there's people, by the way, who at first didn't like the idea of bringing McAdoo, and if you look at social media, especially around the Jacksonville area, people are warming up to it because they realize that McAdoo specifically, all he's got to do is work with the quarterbacks. He's not running plays, and he's not coming up with schemes, and he's not the head cheese. The same thing for Gruden. He's not running the football team. He was a really good coordinator in Cincinnati. He proved that. And Andy Dalton had his best seasons, with Marvin Lewis and Gruden together. So there's some optimism, and that's a good thing to have, I guess, considering everything we've been through over the last 13 months. There's some optimism here, and that's something to hang your hat on.
All right. Well, the reality of the situation is the London Bridge isn't falling down, but the Jacksonville Bridge will fall down on Marone if he doesn't figure it out pretty quick, because it's probably a broken subject anyways, but we all know Doug is on a win or you're out situation. I don't even think Shad Khan will accept 8 or 9 wins. I think Shad Khan's looking for 10.
Do you think they move on from him mid-season if he's not winning?
And by the way, everybody, Candy Ebling joins the program.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Candy. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
It's good. I'm doing well. Everything all right down there?
Everything's just fine.
Great. I don't know if there's a number, and I can make the case for the reason why he kept him and he shouldn't have. But I don't think there's necessarily a number. He has to see. he needs to be at least 8-8, and he has to show incredible improvement on offense more than anything. I think that Todd Wash is either going to save himself or going to save himself, so I'm not going to worry about the defense right now. But I do know that if this offense does not get better, it was 18.8 points per game this season. Last season in 18, it was 15.3. So there's a modicum of success, if you want to call it that. And I know it's both pitiful, but there has to be 8-9 wins. There has to be consistent play at quarterback. The offensive line has to be more consistent and has to be more disciplined. And for God's sake, Leonard Fournette has to learn to hit the hole and go through it, because he's still a plodding running back. He has to get through to the second level so he can excel. And he also has to be able to run off the left side for him to be able to put it in second gear. There's so many holes that they still have to fill, and they're hoping this coaching staff's going to do that.
Well, we're dancing around this, and you've already mentioned it, David. Okay, you have 3 head coaches on the staff, including the one and the other 2 new. So and of course, Shad Khan fired Gus Bradley by the end of the season a few years ago when things were bad, to replace him with Marone. So, yeah, I could definitely see Marone not making it through the year if this team doesn't show a great deal of improvement. And if you take that and the fact that they're playing 2 games in London, this is a very, very interesting year in a lot of ways. I don't see Marone getting through the year knowing that you have potential interim replacements that could go ahead and get the job permanently if they even show a pulse at all.
You're right. What I think is interesting, and this is I'm taking what you said and maybe taking it a bit further. Everything is going to depend now on where those London games are stacked in the schedule. If they decide that they want to play London games earlier in the season so that fans aren't dying of heat and, braving the elements in 95-degree weather, and they take those 2 games across the pond and they're successful, well, then okay, we can live with that. And then Shad says, see, I'm right. It makes Shad look really smart. But let's say it's the middle of October or the end of October, and you know how the NFL likes to stack those games week by week by week.
Right.
And they're losing. I'm curious to see. You won't make a change while they're in London. It would be immediately after. So let's say they get the 7th week and the 8th week in London, and then they take the 9-week bye. The week 9 bye, which makes sense. I'm pretty sure that Shad's saying to them, you know what, we're doing you a solid. Give me a break at the actual bye, midway point, so I can let my team heal, so to speak. But if they're 2-6, he's not going anywhere else. He's coming back to London. He's packing his bag. He's gone.
Yeah.
And then you decide, and I'm going to assume it's going to be Gruden who slides into that spot, at least in the interim. I doubt seriously it will be Todd Wash. I can't. For the life of me, it wouldn't be McAdoo.
Right.
Maybe Keenan McCardell, but we've discussed Keenan before. This is he's really going for broke. How about that? That's right. He's also maybe thinking himself that he's hiring his successor.
Well, the reality of the situation is Gruden came from the Washington Redskins, so I think he deserves another opportunity to lead a team. I don't think anybody can practically win in Washington. I wish Ron Rivera the best, and maybe he might be the best chance at doing that. But when you look at the fact that Mike Shanahan failed, Joe Gibbs' second time around wasn't nearly as good as his first, although his first act was awfully good anyways. But a lot of good coaches came and went. So Jay Gruden, I think, does deserve another opportunity to lead a team. But, let's not kid yourself. You're 2-6 going into London. I think those games are going to be, you're probably looking at the end of October, November. Is when my gut feeling is when those games would be scheduled anyways. But who knows? Maybe Marone does not take the trip over to London. I mean, there's so many variables. If they perform well, then he's good for at least another year.
Right.
But we'll find out as time goes on. But if I were to predict anything, Jay Gruden is his successor.
Possibly. It also depends on if he does make it the whole year, who else is available.
True.
But I really believe that Robert Saleh is going to be a head coach next year in 2021, and I would like to see him as a head coach in 2021. Mike Kafka, who's the quarterbacks coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, he's going to be a name to watch, especially if Mahomes is more successful. And could you imagine that? He's even more successful this year than he was last year. And believe it or not, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Nathaniel Hackett's going to get himself a head coaching job if Aaron Rodgers is able to do the same things he did this past year. Everybody forgets that Hackett went over to Green Bay, and boy, they did pretty well, didn't they? It wasn't the offensive coordinator. It was the coaching staff. It's the head coach. It falls in line. We've had assistants who go on to other teams and are just as successful at other situations than they are here at Jacksonville. It's like we're cursed.
Well, don't feel too bad. The Detroit Lions are more cursed than anybody else. What do you think about if you become a head coach with the Detroit Lions, outside of Dick Duran, who was an interim head coach, none of them get hired after they leave Detroit, and they get a lot of years, and they prove that they can't get it done. And undoubtedly the most patient owners on the planet. If you can't win in Detroit, they don't get hired.
Well,
they don't.
I know that. By the way, I'm betting that Tennessee and Detroit are going to be the two home games in London.
Don't tell me that.
What?
Don't tell me that.
Well, I'm sorry, buddy, but I'm just we're
well, you're probably right. I mean, I there's perception and reality. I hope it isn't in Detroit, because then you have a 16-year gap about when you see them, because they play
right, and
every.
I get that.
But
I get that. But Tennessee makes sense. And I know that there were a couple of sites that I saw today that were talking about the possibility of Tennessee hosting a game there, but I think that they may wind up being one of the Jaguar opponents. Maybe the best thing for the Jaguars is they do play their division rivals in London, and hope to God the last year was an aberration, and that 26-3 loss to Houston isn't going to be the same thing as it is this year. And I think fans would be okay with that. That helps them out, because then they're going to get to see Pittsburgh and Chicago are guaranteed to be in Jacksonville, but then they get to see, Detroit, who they never get to see. And,
right, exactly.
Cleveland's gonna be there. They're not gonna play the Browns over in London, because the Browns travel well. They won't put the Dolphins in London with them because it's an in-state rival.
Right.
Miami travels well upstate. So I would hope that it would be two division rivals. And I wouldn't have a problem with that at all. And it also means I don't feel so bad if I don't go.
Well, all right, you touched on some interesting points, and I may sound a little bit of a homer at this point in Detroit. But with all due respect, and it's okay, I'll let out my Honolulu blue and silver on this broadcast, okay? They play them once every 8 years, so they should keep the Lions on the schedule in Jacksonville, no doubt about it. The divisional opponents you see every year anyway, so what's the difference to begin with? But I don't know. I guess we'll find out in a couple of months, so I'm not thinking about it right now. I got a lot of miles to put on this body before that. But if the Lions end up going to London, then maybe there's a chance I may take that trip to London if we can put it on our bucket list and attempt to do it. So my other half is hoping I don't want to see the Lions in London. I'd rather see them in Jacksonville. And if everything goes according to plan, we end up going to Green Bay with the Jaguars anyway. Should be happier than you can imagine. So.
Well, as long as your better half is happy, that's the only thing that matters. I mean, you know that.
Especially the day before Valentine's Day. You should be saying that.
You set that one up.
No, you're right. Exactly. Let's bring that up. But
I don't know.
I know that I was playing Cupid earlier because tomorrow is a really busy day and I'm not going to get to do that. So, as long as you're happy, everything's fine. I mean, forget about football. In reality, as long as Candy's happy, we're all happy, right? Happy
wife, happy life.
That's it. That's it.
Right,
well, but at any rate, we got a couple more minutes to go before I let you go here, unless
Sure,
you run
go
out
ahead.
of things to talk about. But no, I
never
think
run out of things to talk about.
you and I. Well, that's true. We've developed that thing where we definitely don't run out of things to talk about. But let's talk about the London game. I think you bring up an interesting dynamic about they're going to play 2 in a row out in England. So I wonder how different the preparation is. Obviously, they're going to stay overseas for the entire 2 weeks. I'm actually intrigued about that because then you wonder down the road if there ever is a London team where they play 8 in a row out there, then they have to travel overseas to stay here and have a base somewhere. So it kind of makes you wonder what the Jags doing 2 in a row. Would there be any interesting discussion about the feasibility of a London team at some point down the road based on what we could be checking out?
Scott, as soon as they said that there was going to be 2 home games, you knew that those floodgates already started to open.
Oh, yeah.
It reared its ugly head again. And some of the comments that were made were like, just go ahead and send them there already. I mean, people are tired of it. It's never going to go away. The topic of London itself and being able to have 8 home games is never going to go away until, the commissioner, whoever it is, and it's not going to be Goodell, says we're not doing this. It's not feasible, or we don't want the headache with scheduling. We don't want a headache with travel. We don't want a headache with this, that, and the other. Families are, torn apart as it is because there's so much time away. These things matter. And I think that impacts, those things impact people in free agency. Those things impact where players want to play. I guarantee there'll be a guy the Jaguars pursue in free agency, and he'll say, I really don't want to go to London for 2 weeks. I don't want to be away from my family that long. I don't want to prepare for the changes for 2 weeks because it's a struggle. It's a mental, physical, and emotional, change. Those things, I don't know if they've actually factored into the decision to play because it was purely financial. But that, at some point, will impact everything else.
Well, I don't know about that. I think when you talk about a guy who worrying about 2 weeks in London for crying out loud, if he's got that attitude, then he better not sign with the Jaguars altogether because the reality is most of his paychecks coming from those revenues across the pond anyways because full well Jacksonville doesn't make nearly as much money at home, whether it's 50, 60,000, 70,000, unless they're really winning. So I don't know about if I'd go that far. And not only that,
how about this? I know that it's been a topic of conversation here, whether it's reality or not.
Right.
That's what they are talking about. How about that? That's fair enough?
Well, that's okay. You're there. I give you that. But when everybody was talking about the problems they had with Coughlin, making all these moves that got him fired and all these fines, that's a different reason not to go there to play, and it becomes an outright embarrassment. But when you're talking about a cash cow like London, I would like to think that the people they bring in are going to make a big deal over 2 London games in a row. That's a different animal.
I hope not. It has been a topic that has been brought up more than once this week. I'm just putting it out there. What I do think is, maybe we talk about this on the next show, is what happens I'm doing some research on it for you already, so here we go.
All right.
Now that Coughlin is gone, what happens in free agency? And how does David Caldwell become that bridge to smooth things over? Not because it's a Coughlin situation. It's a Jaguar situation.
Yeah,
How does David Caldwell become the mediator, essentially?
Well, I think Caldwell will do all right in free agency. I do. You get rid of Coughlin, everybody knows the problem that they had. But bear in mind, these guys are trying to get paid whatever money they can get. Listen, I've dealt with Caldwell a couple of times. I have no problem with David. I mean,
you can't be Dave Caldwell. You can't be at least friendly with Dave Caldwell. Then you really have a problem. He's a super nice guy. He's not doesn't walk around with a scowl on his face or anything like that. He's every guy. How about that?
Right. But the reality with Caldwell is he knows, like Marone, they're connected at the hips here. If neither of them win, they're both gone. So, and his record as GM hasn't been very good. So it's really all or nothing for him is really what it comes down to.
Everything is all or nothing.
But I don't think free agents will get deterred, David, with David Caldwell there. I don't see that.
I hope not. In a utopia, I want everybody to succeed and I want everybody to stay.
Right.
I want Marone to stay more than Caldwell, and we've discussed this because I think the Marone, when he's not handcuffed, he's a pretty good coach. So I want to see what happens this year. I could see Caldwell leaving for numerous reasons, but I here's my homerism, kind of like what you do, with the Packers and the Lions. I'm blessed to be able to talk about the team that I grew up watching.
Right.
I'm from Jacksonville. I've been here 30-something years. So it's the only team I know, really. I mean, I worked for the Dolphins as a kid and whatnot. I liked Coughlin with his first go-around. I wasn't crazy about other coaches that were here.
Right.
I really like Doug Marone. He's just down to earth. And but you've interacted with him.
Oh, yeah. I have no problem with Doug.
He's great, and I want him to stay.
Well, the X factor here, though, David, is whether Caldwell stays or goes. You got Trent Baalke in there, so you have to kind of wonder that with another good football mind there, whether he is the guy that will ultimately run the operation. This is his first year getting to know the operation. So I think you can basically, to make a long story short, you can read between the tea leaves, and we'll go from there. So we got another minute to go, Dave. Why don't you go ahead and let all of our listeners know how they can reach you on social media?
Sure. I'm on Twitter on DM719907. I can be found on Bleacher Report, where I cover football and baseball, and whatever else they ask me to cover. And we're doing a baseball show. Once we get all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed, we get a baseball show, Scott.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Actually, you said you're going to be coming to these parts at the end of February, so I think that's what we're planning to do to try to get a lot of that going. Yeah, me too.
Really, I'm coming for my tan, and I'm just going to stop at in your office for a little while and talk a little baseball along the way, if that's all right.
Oh, you talk about baseball, football, but the best part about it is we got a lot of planning to do. We got some good things lined up, and I'm excited that you and I are going to continue the relationship in a lot of different ways. So, meanwhile, David, all I can tell you is thanks for being on the Sports Exchange tonight. And we look forward to having you back on the program on Tuesday. Meanwhile, I hope you and your significant other have a happy Valentine's Day together.
Great, and I hope you guys enjoy Valentine's Day as well. I'll talk to you on Tuesday.
You bet.
Thanks.
Have a good night, David. Good night.
Good night, guys. Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right, Candy, what are your thoughts about the Jacksonville situation? Do you have any take on everything we just talked about?
Well, I want to put a little clarification in. The NFL had announced the teams that were playing home games over in London next year. One of them is the Atlanta Falcons. The other one is the Miami Dolphins. So now Jacksonville does play Miami, and it's considered is it considered a Miami home game? Let me quick double check. No, it would have been a home game. So it won't be the Dolphins that they're playing over there, because the Dolphins aren't going to be over there for 2 weeks.
Well, no, I think if the Dolphins are getting a home game over there, you know why they're going to get one, don't you? Stephen Russell will go ahead and make sure that they get one in so they can host a Super Bowl. I think nowadays a lot of that's usually connected. If you play overseas, the odds that you get another Super Bowl are good. Miami did a really good job hosting the Super Bowl anyway. So
yeah, and they say that they're either going to play in London. Those two teams are either going to play one of their home games in London or Mexico City.
Right. Well, they definitely take a lot of pride in what they're trying to do promote the game internationally.
Do you know what one team has not played in London yet?
Yeah, I believe the Green Bay Packers.
Correct.
And the only way that they'll ever play there is if they have 17 weeks in a season and they don't get their eighth.
They'd probably play a away game. I don't think the Packers would give up a home game.
The
other team would have to give up. That's
an interesting conversation. My gut feeling is they're going to get the Packers in London one way or the other with the 17th game. They're not first of all, the Packers being what they are, nobody's going to give up. They're usually the biggest draw in everybody's home schedule anyways when they're on the road. And at home, they're not giving up the game. So the only way you get the Packers over in London is by having that 17th game where they're going to be told they have to do it. But it doesn't affect the fact that they're playing 8 in Lambeau no matter what.
Well, remember this last year, they did play outside the U.S.
Yeah, what, in Canada over a winter?
Well, but look what look what happened with that one.
Well, what happened was they played the game out in Winnipeg for $22,000 back in the Canadian Football League for a preseason game. The Raiders didn't want to pay $500,000 in rent over the Oakland Coliseum, and just so happens the Packers didn't care during the preseason, but they played a road game at the preseason.
But they did care. Look at the field conditions that they played on. They didn't even use the whole field. It was an awful mess. Some of the players didn't play because they sat them because the field was not in good enough conditions.
Well, first of all, playing the game in Winnipeg when there were other places to do it, nobody's going to sit here and tell me that playing it in Toronto wasn't a better option. British Columbia would have been a better option because they have much better fields. They just picked the wrong CFL stadium to play in. But, yeah, they did get them. But when it comes down to keeps, the only way that the Packers are ever going to go ahead and play in London is when you have a 17-game schedule because we know they're never going to do it with 16. So.
Okay.
But, it's food for thought.
It is.
So, I don't know. All I can tell you is so far here on the Sports Exchange has had a great time. Earlier tonight we had Jim Crutchfield on from Nova Southeastern University. Looking forward to covering that game on Saturday out in Davie, Florida. So,
and where can you find that?
Where can you find that? You're going to find it on www.southfloridatribune.com.
Okay, or our podcasts are on Apple, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, Deezer, wherever you get your podcasts. It's on there. Just look for South Florida Tribune, and this was the Sports Exchange Special Edition.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's, as we continue to support a lot of our media distribution partners in Nova Southeastern University. I remember many years ago when I was there for Broward Community College Central. It's these colleges are getting unbelievable. I remember University of South Florida, my alma mater.
Bill Winters.
Has grown a lot. Meanwhile, our next guest is former New York Giants offensive lineman Bill Winters. And Bill, thanks for being on the show. How are you tonight?
I'm fine, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Hi, Bill.
Glad to have you back on. You're on with Candy.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Happy early Valentine's Day, Bill.
Yes, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, Bill, you had when we talked in pre-production, you had yourself a pretty interesting idea. So I'm going to let you go ahead and fly with it.
Okay. Well, I like to laugh. I get a kick out of, what's going on out there right now, because we talk about this pendulum and it being so far off to the left. So, I put in a hard day. I come home and, I get online and I'm just looking at the sports stories. And what I'm seeing, and I think this is fun for us to talk about in a few minutes, just want to make a point about something. Champions do the little things better than everyone else. Okay, and in this case, if your job is to have your credentials around your neck, and you're the president of the Toronto Raptors, you need to do your job. And what's going on is this security guard, Alan Strickland, is actually suing the president of the Toronto Raptors, Masai Ujiri, because they got in an altercation because Ujiri was in the locker room. The Raptors are going to, win Game 6 and win a championship, and he wants to run onto the court. And he knows he's supposed to have it around his neck, but he's holding his hand. The security guard doesn't see it, so they get to a shoving match. Okay, and now the guy's filing criminal charges. Now, I'm sitting back and going, you're the president of the Raptors. How hard is it for you to keep your composure All right, keep your emotions in check. Yeah, I know you're winning the championship. Okay, and these are the things that we talk about, poised under pressure. And what I'm seeing over the last 5 or 10 years is a decaying of what I call internal discipline. Doesn't matter whether you're the president of a team, whether you're a college basketball player, or whatever. I'm seeing a lot of fights in college basketball games. I'm seeing presidents of NBA teams not being smart enough just to relax, put the ID badge around your neck, then get on the court. Okay, and this all leads to a lot of mindless lawsuits, a lot of mindless energy and everything else. And then you also had the way the guys were handling the LSU championship. And I've been on both sides of the fence. I've done a lot of security for Super Bowls. I've done a lot of security for rock concerts back in the day. And I got to tell you that altercations come from people being stuck in no-win situations like the security guard. And, I'm sure the charges are malicious. I mean, I'm listening to the interview, and I've watched the video several times. And you can just see that he was so hyped up that he couldn't think when he came running down the locker room because he was so excited about his team winning. And he didn't have any respect for the guy doing his job. Okay, this is the same thing that went on in the LSU locker room. I actually have a video right now of an Eastern Kentucky football player who body slams a police officer, and the guy is walking towards him. And, this is almost like an intelligence test. And so I'm just going to give a shout-out to our viewers and say, hey, look, there's two sides to every story. Okay, a lot of this stuff just comes from the inability for people to take care of what I call attention to small detail, like wearing your ID badge around your neck, or if somebody tells you, hold on a second, you need to respect that. Because if the roles are reversed, what studies have found is the people that are put in these situations, like security guards, that are maybe, talking to a youngster about, hey, I need to stand quiet and pay attention. When they take the test, they do worse than the police officer or the security guard. And that's what they're doing in the inner cities right now with highly educated people. They're college graduates. They're trying to, cure what I call relations between police officers and everything else. And there's no right or wrong in either one of these situations. As far as I'm concerned, both parties are wrong. But, the reality of it is I just see that we're seeing a lot more what I call undisciplined behavior, okay, that never used to happen. And I blame it on technology. I really do. We never used to have these kinds of problems. Okay, now we have players coming in, they have their own agenda, trying to hype stuff in the LSU locker room to sell product. We got a president who runs down the locker room, runs down the chute, wants to get on the court, and doesn't have enough respect for some guy. And really, the security guard was overreacting because it was called in by his bosses because they had an issue in the previous game where some guy was on the court and they got chewed out. So, there's two sides to every story, but I just have to laugh because it's almost like an intelligence test these days. And I just think that our viewers need to know that, you need to have a little bit more attention to detail. When you're told to do something, put your ID badge around your neck. Okay, and just wear it around your neck like everybody else, and you're not an exception to the rule. You're supposed to be a leader of an organization. And this is an embarrassment for the Raptors. This is an embarrassment for Ujiri. Okay, and the security guard is really laying it thick, to the point where he's kind of exploiting him a little bit, but he's trying to get his point across. So I just want to get that out because I like to laugh, but I just sit back and go, these are things we never used to have problems with back in the day.
Well,
so I just thought, throw that out there.
Well, Jerry's had some issues in the past. I think he had a run-in with his former coach, Dwayne Casey of the Detroit Pistons, so it's not like the guy doesn't have a little bit of a hot temper anyways. He got lucky, however, when he let Casey go, that Nick Nurse was a great replacement and ended up winning a title, so he got away or got lucky with that. But, it's not like the guy isn't a hothead, Bill.
Well, I watched the video over and over and over, and, being an offensive lineman who's down in the pit, okay, I'm a real good judge on violent people. I can take a look, I run into people all day long, okay, and they say, I used to be a professional athlete, I could have made it, but I got married, or I was, a professional athlete, I broke my arm, or I tore my knee up. And we have to hear that all the time. It's one of the pitfalls of being a professional athlete. Okay, but you try to be nice to everybody, but occasionally you have people that will challenge you. But you got to be smart enough to know how to play the game within the game. And when I watched him on the court, I could just see he looked like a deer in headlights. He looked like he'd lost his composure. He actually ran down the chute from the locker room. Okay, and, you want to get on the court, that's fine, but a guy's got to do his job. You need to respect that. But there doesn't seem to be that anymore. And then he's not even, if I got involved in an altercation, okay, with a police officer, okay, and I've been involved in a few in my day, but I've always been able to talk it out, okay, or just wait him out by being quiet and letting the guy do his job. That seems to be a lost art today amongst a lot of people that are in the corporate world, okay, and playing college sports, okay, or actually or sitting in the stands. I've never seen, it's getting to the point now where you watch sports and you watch players taking punches and stuff like that, in basketball games. You're watching guys, doing stupid stuff like urinating on a goalpost, okay, or walking into the locker room, okay, and getting in an altercation with a security guard, and all the guy's trying to do is do his job. And you just kind of sit back, and that kind of reminds me of the needle going all the way to the left. It'll start going back to the middle, because the way people learn is they get into your pocketbook. And this is, they ought to have a course, okay, on how to handle yourself after winning a championship. All right, because, when you don't do what you're supposed to do, and you don't have attention to detail, and you don't do the little things that are asked of you, okay, and then you don't do it, and then you're not smart enough to look at your own behavior.
Right.
If I was the jury, I would have turned around and said, what did I do wrong here?
Right.
Well, I should need to have my ID badge around my neck, okay, so the guy could see it in plain view, so he wasn't stuck in a no-win situation. And the guy, I don't think it's even crossed his mind. Okay, I look at what's going, with this. I'm watching the video of this Eastern Kentucky football player who body slams a police officer, and you can just clearly see he wasn't listening to instruction. In fact, he continues to walk towards the police officer. If the roles are reversed, all right, that guy might have shot the other guy.
Right.
Okay, and being a police officer, being a security guard, trust me when I tell you, is a no-win situation.
Right.
That's why I got paid a lot of money to work Super Bowl. And the stuff that I saw, all right, you got to make really quick decisions pretty quickly.
Right.
Okay, on being able to, you got to be really good at people relations. That's all I'm going to say.
Well,
so I just wanted to make that point because I think it's laughable where we're at today. Okay, and I just think we need to have a course where people, have to be able to pass it, to be able to handle situations like winning a championship or, being able to handle the last 2 minutes of a game. Because I've been in a situation where I can see, based on a video, okay, based on in a guy's eyes and how he's acting, whether or not he can actually think correctly under pressure.
Well, the reality situation is, Bill, accountability doesn't mean anything anymore. And two, you're right, the big monster called social media is such a different animal that most people ever had to deal with before that they have to now. And obviously, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or whatever the case may be, when one thing happens and you talk about it on social media, how many instances have you ever seen where now somebody's heard about it, some whack job gets it, and all of a sudden it happens 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and you're promoting something, and it's just an absolute shame. But I'm glad that you brought this up. I think it's a very unique thing to talk about, and to me, it does need to be addressed in some way, shape, or form, and I'm glad that you made light of it. But well, what can I tell you? Wrap a credential right around your neck and say, be done with it. But everybody's in a sue-happy society anyways. They are.
Well, I'd love to tell this story. Back in the day in an NFC championship game, a quarterback forgot his credentials. He pulls into the stadium. Okay, the security guard knew who he was. He sees him every day. But the security guard would not allow him to pass through without the credential. The guy had to drive home, get his credentials, all right, and he was late starting the game in the first quarter.
Huh.
And quite frankly, there was never any altercation. All right, the guy did exactly what he did. I think today, all right, somebody would have made a scene and assaulted the police officer and caused a lot of problems.
Yeah. Because
there just seems to be an erosion of a lack of respect for the other party when they're trying to do their job. And I call it an intelligence test. You got to be smart enough to know, hey, this guy's not in a no-win situation. How hard is it for you to cool your jets for a second, say, I have my credentials, put them around your neck, and make sure that, smooth the guy over. Be real nice. Okay? I was a bouncer for years. I never hit anybody. My job was not to hit anybody. I've thrown out over 1,000 people. I got paid a lot of money, my off-season job to make decisions that didn't reflect the lawsuit on the bar. And I would always, I'd get them out. All right, sometimes throw them on the ground, whatever I had to do. So you're welcome to come back next time. Okay, you're having too much fun tonight. All right, go have some fun somewhere else. But I was never violent, never threw any punches. And I'm sitting here, so I'm kind of, I think I'm been in a lot of situations where I'm kind of an expert on talking about this stuff. I won't even talk to you about the Super Bowl with pickpockets. Okay, at Tampa Stadium where people were getting crushed to death. And people were handing me little kids, and over the top of their heads and putting them behind the gate by the NBC trucks. Okay, and I sit back. So I've seen a lot of situations. And to me, it's like an intelligence test. And I just laugh because I'm sitting here going, I'm coming home to relax, and here I am looking at this guy who's the president of the Raptors, and he's involved in all of these, lawsuits regarding the security guard and how he's slamming the security guard. The truth is going to come out. So I said, let me watch the video and see if the guy's got a beef. Okay, and I'm sitting here, and I didn't really see anything that was great other than just put the thing around your neck and stop being a jackass. It's not that hard. You know what I mean? Like, and you could just see in his eyes, it's like his ego wouldn't allow him to take instruction from someone else.
Right.
That's the way it looked to me. All right, and so I have to laugh. It doesn't surprise with this guy. He's got a little bit of a track record or thing. That's all fine and good. And as far as I'm concerned, it's much ado about nothing. But I just have to laugh sometimes at the stuff I'm seeing. It's just, quite frankly, I just think it's an intelligence test.
All right, so the moral of the story here is have respect for people who do their jobs. With 1 minute to go in the segment, you can go ahead and let people know how to go ahead and access you because you got about a minute to state it.
Yes, you can find me on Facebook. Bill Winters, you'll see a circle with a nice headshot on there if you want to separate all those Bill Winters on there and hit Facebook there. You go to my Wikipedia page, Bill Winters Football, it'll come right up. And I'd love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just go into the YouTube search engine, type in Bill Winters Football, and you'll see a purple circle with me wearing a Nike hat. Just click on subscribe. And also you can find our show on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and the other was Apple. Whatever those search engines that show podcasts.
All right, well, with that said, okay, Bill, we appreciate you being on again. Just to let our fans know that Bill and I will be doing 2 shows a week very soon. So look for the updates on social media and any way that you can access the South Florida Tribune, which, in case you want to know, www.southfloridatribune.com. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, at Tribune South Gets It Done. And, of course, we have a couple more domain names that we added to the mix this week, www.sflatribune.com or sftribune.com. Did you get that? Maybe not, but anyways, any of those sites get you to all of us. So
we're also on Facebook and Instagram. Look for us, South Florida Tribune, on Facebook.
So there you go, Bill. They have access to us a lot of ways, and Bill Winters does happen to have a bio on the South Florida Tribune as well. So, Bill, once again, well done, and we'll talk to you next week so we can begin to prepare for our next program. All right, Bill?
Have a great night, you two.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you very much, Bill. Good night.
So, what do you think about what he was saying, Scott? Part of what I would say is...
he's dead on. He is. I mean, nowadays social media tends to take it to different levels where, if you've seen it, some knucklehead's going to get on with it, and then all of a sudden when you have a situation which, with all due respect, I hate to use this example because I really do, but unfortunately, considering what he's talking about, it does make so many sense. How many times have you seen a lot of these school shootings? You hear about one, all of a sudden a couple more follow thereafter.
Mm-hmm. That's true. We're coming up on amongst an anniversary around here.
Yeah, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we ended up going to the funeral for Aaron Feist, the deceased football coach for Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, which is unfortunate. But, he's right. I mean, you talk about the incident with the Toronto Raptors. But really, these guys should be wearing their credentials, and they think they're above the situation. So I don't know. Is there a tug of war about who should do what? I don't know. But it's unfortunately the day and age that we really live in, and what can you do?
Well, and he was also talking about how people are sue happy.
Oh, yeah.
So did you hear about the latest about the guy that's going to sue? He's talking about it. He's a far Christian, and he is going to sue the NFL and Pepsi for that Super Bowl halftime show.
All I can say is, Candy and all our listeners, good luck.
Yeah, he's asking for... He's not asking for a little bit of money. He is asking for a boatload of money. He was a local minister. He's got a podcast, so maybe this is just a way to get his podcast ratings up.
He'll draw attention with that.
You know,
he definitely won't have a problem exercising his freedom of speech on his podcast. Maybe he needs more subscribers. That's the way to do it.
He is claiming he would be satisfied by scoring an $867 trillion settlement.
Okay. And I'll say this again. Good luck.
Well, my thought is, yes, I understand he's upset about seeing what he saw. But then why didn't he just turn the TV off?
And what's his occupation again?
Nobody forced him to watch the Super Bowl halftime show. He is a former Ohio football coach.
Okay.
He is a local minister right now.
Okay.
Who is not happy with the NFL and that halftime show.
So do these local ministers have Jed Clampett money?
No, he's trying to get
exactly. That's my point. Thank you for making my point.
You're welcome.
Luck. All right. The only chance this guy has, and since we had a clown show with two of them on earlier today, is this clown's looking to build his subscribers and pad his podcast. Now, if that's what he thinks he's going to get out of it, well, then I guess publicity any way you can get it to generate followers is what he'll do, and then maybe he'll make his money on the monetization aspect. But
see, it's maybe going with that theme. He needs to do his job that he was hired to do, not trying to get rich some other way.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess nowadays everybody's looking for an angle, right?
Hey, any quick buck or easy buck they're going to try and get. So, as easy as it comes.
All right. With that said, we have our final guest, Jake Rongholt, who is a regular contributor to the South Florida Tribune. And Jake is our version of the Mariano Rivera is the closer of the show. How about that? Since you're going to talk about baseball, I might as well throw a closer at you. I'm sure Candy Ebling would love it if it were Trevor Hoffman. But right now, Mariano Rivera, meet Jake Rongholt. Okay, Jake.
Well, it's quite a gold standard, and I greatly appreciate it. I mean, at this point, I would be fine if you gave me Jonathan Papelbon at this point. So,
really?
Thank you.
Jonathan Papelbon. Hey, if I sat there and threw a couple players that were before your time, you probably have to Google them before the end of the conversation. I used to like Raleigh Fingers and John Hiller of the Detroit Tigers. Now, Fingers you've heard of, but did you ever hear of John Hiller?
I've heard of John Hiller. I've heard of Raleigh Fingers. Yes, those are some of the greatest closers to ever play the game. So, yeah, no doubt.
John Hiller was a fine closer. With that said, okay, we're going to let you go ahead and talk about some baseball and tell me the things you want to talk about in the sequence for what you set up. You'll have a
good segue since you're talking baseball anyways, and we just opened spring training.
Absolutely. And you have as much time as you need to talk about everything that you talked about. Go for it.
Well, the good news is that at least, we have some baseball to talk about here coming up. I mean, pitchers and catchers have reported, but then we get this little bombshell from the Houston Astros who refused to take responsibility for what they did. I mean, the facts are there. They used a trash can. They used technology to cheat their way to a World Series. And instead of them actually, having a heart actually having a soul and a moral compass, they're not doing anything. I mean, you had Alex Bregman and Jose Altuve come out in their Houston Astros hats and read a statement like it was Mark McGuire and Rafael Palmeiro at the congressional hearings just back in the early 2000s. I was just shocked. And then, Jim Crane, hypocritical in his, he comes out to one question and he says, quote, "Our opinion is that this didn't impact the game." Then ESPN's Marley Rivera comes back and asks the question again, and this took 55 seconds later. "I didn't say it didn't impact the game." Well, yes, you did. In fact, all you proved is that you are ready to be beaned. You're going to be beaned by the Rangers because Chris Woodward, pop quiz hotshot, he was actually one of the base coaches for the Los Angeles Dodgers in the 2017 World Series. You don't think he's going to tell Corey Kluber and Mike Minor, "Oh, yeah, beat him. I don't care. Give him some chin music. Give him a reason to understand that what they did was wrong." And you got the Angels with Joe Madden, who is no stranger to this. He has a moral compass. And you're trying to tell right now that you don't think Joe Madden, Chris Woodward, you don't think that Bob Melvin are not going to tell their pitchers, especially when the Oakland Athletics were the ones who started this whole thing with Mike Fiers. You have set yourself up to basically being part of a victim of beanball. Your guys are going to get hit in the back, they're going to get hit in the foot, they're going to get hit in the wrist, and it's not going to matter. Because the way that you handled this was exactly how Alex Rodriguez handled his first time getting busted with steroids. Denial, denial, denial. Welcome to After Cheating, Houston.
Well, so are you trying to tell me a bunch of Astros got bullseyes on their chest?
They have bullseyes. They got dartboards ready to go. They might have National Dartboard Night or something at the ballparks, where everybody gets a little dartboard and a couple of little plastic darts, and you throw it at your favorite Houston Astro player as he's up to bat. It is such a disaster right now for the Astros, and I understand this is a good baseball team. They still have a lot of talent. But even if they win 90 games, they have so much pressure now on themselves. They are telling Major League Baseball, "Yeah, we cheated. What of it? You're not going to take our World Series. And in fact, we're going to get to the World Series without even cheating."
So
you're dealing with a house of cards right now, Houston.
So I have to ask you a question, okay?
Sure.
Are you a broadcaster or are you a promoter?
A little bit of both, I guess.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of, let's just go out there, National Dartboard Night. One of my old friends in the business named Mike Vack used to be one of the best promoters. He owned 9 million minor league teams. And by the way, he was the son of late owner Bill Vack. And if you know anything about Bill Vack, then you know where the tea leaves. So I had to make sure that Jake Rongholt wasn't being substituted for Don King. Only in America! My goodness!
Well, it's ridiculous, and I would not be surprised if the Rangers, the Angels, and the Athletics, and the Yankees, and the Red Sox, not the Red Sox, that's a story for another time, but those teams, I would not doubt, they have great marketing programs, good guys that run those, they're going to have some fun with this, and also, I just can't wait to watch it, because, these cheaters are getting exactly what is coming to them. They were basically given a slap on the wrist. Jeff Luhnow, your general manager, was fired. He's suspended for a year. A.J. Hinch, who got you to the big dance, fired and suspended for a year. And this is what Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, Marvin Gonzalez, Justin Verlander, and all them got. Nada. Zip. All they got was the baseball equivalent of the Big Short. When we were all talking about, the real estate bubble bursting, and we were all wondering if all these CEOs were going to be arrested. Nah, nothing happened to them. They got away with it. And that's exactly what the Houston Astros are doing right now, except they don't have a smart screenwriter like Adam McKay.
Well, I'll tell you what. For all those folks out in Walmart, you better go out there and stock up on those dartboards. If you can't find them there, go over to eBay. And if you can't find them over there, Where else do you buy them? On Amazon? You can find dartboards all over the place. Or, if that isn't good enough, just go ahead and show up wherever the Houston Astros, and you'll have a lot of dartboards. I wonder how many baseballs are going to get thrown at them. How much debris? Am I promoting all this activity? I don't know.
You know what I can't wait though, Scott?
What's that?
I can't wait for mini trash can night.
Oh gosh.
And every time one of the Astros are up there, the fans just start banging on these little trash cans.
Gosh,
I want to see that.
Me too, now that you brought it up. That is too funny.
Well, why not? I mean, basically show them how dumb this whole thing was and that you're not taking responsibility for it, so why the hell should we care?
So if that's the case,
we have no reason.
So if that's the case, are you going to get residual money when you come up with this idea about mini trash can? Because I want to know where we could split up on the profits if you want, since you brought it up and I allowed you to air it. I would be
A-okay with that.
We cross the T's and dot the I's. We're pretty good with that. Yeah, that's a great. We need to go out there and put it on our Twitter accounts and Facebook. And anybody game for a trash can promotion night? I guarantee you one thing. If they don't do it in the big leagues, a lot of the minor league teams probably will do it just for the sake of doing it. The minor league teams.
Think of that.
Well, come on. You're going to take it to every level, for crying out loud. They're looking for any way to get butts in the stands. So, they've come up with every promotion on the planet. Why not try to go out there and have mini trash can night and put a Astros logo on it? They all seize opportunities, Jake. Come on.
Well, I give a lot of credit because, you know me and journalistic integrity, but when it comes to this case, I don't care. KTLA, Channel 5 in Los Angeles, they actually put a lower third that said Jose Altuve, Astros cheater. I thought that was bold. And I loved every minute of it. I'm like, keep it going. Seriously, they need to understand what they did was wrong and how they did not get away and how they got away with nothing. Nothing for the players.
Right.
Lunau, Hinch, and all this. These guys are looking for jobs in a year from now, and I wouldn't doubt if Lunau gets hired and Hinch gets hired, but still, nothing. Nothing.
Well,
so whatever is happening to these guys, let it happen.
Okay, so now you brought up an interesting point, Jake, okay? And now instead of joking, although I will in a minute, okay, do you really think that Lunau and Hinch will get hired, or do you think that one or both of them will get blackballed because of this situation?
I think more of Hinch because he has done something that the Houston Astros haven't done. He has taken responsibility. He has apologized for it. He has brought up examples to how this all happened. Now, did he let it happen? Yes, he did. But at least he was considerate. At least he was compassionate, apologized, went on MLB, and pretty much took all the spears that were thrown at him, and he took it like a man. So I do believe that A.J. Hinch will get another opportunity as a manager. There are going to be teams out there that will be looking for managers in 2021.
Well, sits it out a year, and we'll see who's desperate and see who gives them another chance. I think the only one that'll still never get hired, and this is a subject I'll throw a curveball at you since it's appropriate. The only guy I don't think will ever get hired anywhere is Colin Kaepernick. But that'll be for another program.
No, and he's coming out with a memoir coming up here, and I've washed my hands of this guy. I've given this guy so many chances, and the way that he just acts towards any opportunity, anything that based off of football, it's not worth it. And Oliver Luck is a very well-respected person. There was no way he was going in the XFL. I know it's maybe it's a rumor out there that he wanted $20 million from the XFL. Well, guess what? Nobody makes that much in the XFL. Actually, the highest salary is $495,000 for 10 games. That's it. So I don't know if that was true, but seriously, Colin Kaepernick's never getting another opportunity, and I've given him so many chances, and he just fails on every aspect. So whatever, be an activist. That's what you want.
And I can't believe I brought up Colin Kaepernick and A.J. Hinch in the same sentence. Boy, I am losing it, but what the heck? What the heck? It doesn't matter. All right, so so Miles is back. My goodness, you think he deserves back?
Well, I think everybody in the media is being way too carried away with this. And I think this, once again, we're back in hot take territory. Look, I understand what Myles Garrett did was horrendous. I get it. But you know something? This guy was suspended indefinitely. He didn't play another game for the rest of the NFL season. And I understand that they say this and they go, oh, but it's only 6 games. Well, it doesn't matter. It could be 10 games. It could be 12 games. Kareem Hunt was on video committing domestic violence, and the guy only got 8 games. So what are you trying to tell me? There was no aspect of, even though he was given a concussion, Mason Rudolph, but at the same time, you got to understand this. The guy had made nothing, no endorsements, no salary, nothing. And he went to counseling, he got anger management courses, he went to everything. And there was never a speck of him running his mouth, making any stories at all. All he did was take the punishment like a man and then come out and play again. He gets another chance because it's his one and only. And I love it how everybody says this. Oh, Vontae's perfect. Are you kidding me?
Oh,
Vontae's
yeah.
perfect should open up his own league, for crying out loud, with all the money he gave the NFL.
That's
ridiculous.
good.
I mean, this guy gave over nearly $500,000 in fines. And, because Jack Doyle, he helmet-to-helmet him, I said it right here. He's out of chances.
Right.
He's given every opportunity known to man. He's got more chances than Josh Gordon to prove himself, and Vontae's perfect was not able to do it. Myles Garrett only did this one time, and thank goodness, it did not end up in death. It ended up in a situation, a very ugly situation, but he got what was coming to him, and the NFL did what they had to do. Like I said, if you want any argument, go to Kareem Hunt. Like I said, video, domestic violence, everything is there. 8 games. Move on. Myles Garrett is back, and I am fine with it. This is what the NFL wants, so be it.
Well, the thing is you're right. He's never had a track record of such where he's a repeat offender. So you give the guy the benefit of the doubt. So, I remember in Dominican Sue used to go to the principal's office all the time. But meanwhile, he was making a boatload of money. And when you get the reputation, Jake, that you're a dirty player, then it becomes bad. When you have guys like Greg Hardy who make more mistakes than on the planet, and they get repeated chances. Now, now these guys, if they're in their prime, they get it. Not the case with Ray Rice, who was toward the end of his line anyhow and never got back and played at all. So I think when you look at the sum of the whole and the sum of the whole, I agree that Myles Garrett, now if he does it again, then he's in a heap of trouble.
Gone.
Yeah.
Then he is gone. He is gone, eliminated. Get him out of the league. And in fact, I wouldn't doubt if there would be a criminal charges against him if he did that kind of crime one more time.
Yeah, but I'll bet the
like
NFL.
I said,
I'll bet the NFL told him, all right, we'll give you another opportunity to straighten it out.
Yes.
And the fact that he followed the protocol meant that, one would think that he does deserve another opportunity for sure. So, I'm glad you brought it up. It's certainly timely this week. And I hope for Myles Garrett's sake that he gets it figured out. He has a new coaching staff. So I have a feeling there'll be a lot more discipline than the last guy that never deserved the job in the first place, Freddie Kitchens. So.
No, and absolutely. By the way, the guy's the new tight ends coach for the Giants, but that's a story for another time.
Right,
believe
that's
that?
true.
That is one thing I am shocked at. If you take a look at that Giants coaching staff, it's a bunch of fired people. It's Freddie Kitchens at tight end. It's offensive coordinator for Jason Garrett. It's Joe Judge, who has never had a head coaching job in his life. And you're sitting here going, hey, Giants fans, come on out and see the Giants. Yeah, Jason Garrett, he's going to be as slow as molasses with that offensive play calling. So can't wait. But that's a story for another time.
All right, well, let's go back to the diamond, and you indicated a lot of new baseball rules. I'm starting to hate these new baseball rules because Rob Manfred, who's been heavily criticized on tonight's program and probably is being criticized more and more, trying to mess with the purity of the game, is added again. So go ahead and let our listeners know what you like or dislike about the rules. I can't imagine you like many things anyhow, since you want to bring it up.
I hate them all. I don't like the new playoff idea or anything like that. I think that's silly. But I mean, if you're gonna do the playoff idea, go for it. But do the 7 teams. Okay, if you want to put a little bit more into this, don't try and make it all convoluted. You know what really makes playoff systems like the NFL and the NHL work and why people watch that, why the NHL gets their highest ratings of the year. Every single year, more and more people come to watch the NHL playoffs because they are exciting. Okay? If you start watering down the product, people are going to start witnessing. And you got to understand, you have got to stop with the millennial pushing. Okay, I get it. You want to get these guys in their 20s and their 30s involved here, but let's just face the facts. This is a sport that is for 40 and above, and that's how it is. I got lucky because I got to see my first Twins game when I was 5 years old. My dad is a longtime Reds fan. His favorite baseball player of all time is Johnny Bench. So I'm going to follow the guy, and I'm going to follow baseball going forward, and that's what I love about it. But you're taking away strategy now. And let's get to that. The 3-batter minimum is Bush League. It's crap. It's nonsense. It's every negative aspect of language that you could think of describing this rule. It is that. Because you are taking away small ball. You're taking away what happened in 2015. If this rule would have came out and the 2015 Royals were playing the Mets, they could not do what they did, which was they had guys like Calvin Herrera out there, Wade Davis out there, Greg Holland out there, and they were out there maybe for one batter, get them out, bring in the righty, because we got a lefty coming up here. And then you're trying to say just 3 batters? That's not going to do anything. It's not going to make the game faster. It's actually going to make it slower, because now pitchers are going to have to be even more in their strategy and realize, okay, I got to understand I got 3 batters now. I'm not just going for 1 batter. And that is going to just frustrate a lot of pitching coaches going forward. I don't like these rules because they're trying to shoehorn it into the millennial generation.
Right.
Guess what? You don't need it. You still got good enough ratings. What? You want the NBA? You want the NBA social media? Because that is the only thing that is helping them is millennials being on social media. But it's not going to help baseball when there was nothing wrong with the sport going forward.
Well, let me chime in on that for a second.
Sure.
And that's this. Back in the day, okay, we called you Mariano Rivera earlier, and I don't have a problem with it because it does fit pretty well.
It.
But once upon a time, relievers used to pitch 2 or 3 innings, okay, and they got their saves, and they earned them. Rich Gossage is the first to tell you that he hates today's modern-day relievers. Of course, you know, he gets run back in the history books, but, you know, so to some extent, I don't have a problem with the 3-batter rule, but when you do start to mess with strategy, then I do have a problem with it. But, you know, so when we talk about once upon a time sort of stuff, okay, guys used to pitch to 3 hitters anyways all the time. Now a lot of the newer millennials, you know, are going to see it again. But, yeah, no, you don't mess with the sport. So if you had to define one board game that describes baseball, what would you say that it would remind you of?
Well, it used to be known as Risk. Now it's known as Clue because they don't have a clue. They seriously have lost they have lost the instruction booklet. They have lost the little clue cards. They have no idea who is even involved in this. They don't know if Colonel Mustard, Professor Plum, Miss Scarlet, or anything right now. They have zero idea. They're just making up their own rules, their own characters, and trying to create something silly. And that's what is happening right now. It's like watching a movie remake to a classic. And I don't buy into it. And I know when I watch these games this year, I'm going to sit there and go, okay, here we go, 3 batters. Oh, look, there's a home run. Oh, crap. You know, so I just don't like it when I hear the word strategy. And that is now starting to be affected because that's what makes baseball so pure. That's what makes it the sport for crying out loud.
Boy, I'll tell you, if you're upset right now, I can only imagine what the pitch clock would be like. You'll be ranting.
Geez.
Yeah, I know. I had to throw it out there. But the board game that baseball has always reminded me of, Jake, has always been chess.
Chess, okay.
Yeah, that's the one I love. Yeah, I've always thought it was a chess game, but I don't know. I guess you can play it in a lot of different formats. You can, Candy. What's that game that Emily beats me up on all the time? Is that? Which
one?
Well, that's
she beats
true.
you up on all of them.
Yeah, my niece. Emily Olsen, I should mention. Okay, when it comes to hammering the heck out of me, it was
Uno.
Yeah, that's the one. Oh, does she hammer me right when I think I got her beat? Boom, I get hammered. So, oh my goodness. But yeah, I've always defined it as chess. But now they're playing it in different forms of chess. You know, where you have 2 decks of cards, 1 deck of cards.
They might have moved it to checkers now instead of chess.
Yeah, I think so. So, you know what? Just kind of wondering. Yeah, but chess will always be what this game is all about. But now you have. But again, I don't like a lot of the changes. I really don't. I mean,
no, I don't. And you know, I give a lot of credit to Bud Selig. He didn't make many rule changes. He just kept the game going as it is and understood, just like with the NFL, what makes this thing go. Simple: high salary caps and broadcasting contracts with the likes of ESPN, MLB Network, Fox, and all that. I mean, that's where the real money is. And you're watering down a sport where you're sitting there going, okay, now what is about to happen? So I have no clue what is going to happen in this baseball season. What is going to be affected? What kind of things are they going to continuously try to do to water down the game? Because if there is one sport I did not want to see this happen to, it's baseball. Because I'm so excited. I can't wait for the spring, the summer, and part of fall to be dominated by baseball. It's going to be a lot of fun. But when you got nonsense like this and the Houston Astros, it just paints a black eye right now for baseball, and it's just a mess.
I mean, 2 of the rule changes I didn't have a problem with were the intentional walk.
Which ones?
Well, the intentional walk's no big deal. So what? Who cares? And then the other,
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and the amount of mound visits, I had no problem with that one either. Those were not noticeable enough to really make a big deal. Anyhow, I think the one thing that I really thought that Bud Selig really hit a home run, pun intended, this time was the fact that he did have interleague play. I think that to me was unbelievable because then you had a chance to see every team at some point down the road. So I've always liked that. And obviously, you know how much money they made because those interleague games do draw a lot of fans. But when you start to take rule changes like you've mentioned here, then all of a sudden I think there's only so many things you could do to mess with a game, an untimed game with an unbelievable history. So I'm glad you made light of it. So and finally, you wanted to talk college basketball. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, there were some really good games last night. I mean, we had Alabama, Auburn. San Diego State is still undefeated. Duke is number 7 right now in the top 25, which is crazy to me. And now Baylor has been able to stay alive for the full week right now for basketball. So how everybody says, oh, Jake, but there's no story. I like it. Our own stories going forward, which means we don't have that domineering. We don't have that Kentucky team, that Duke team, or any kind of we have some really different kind of stories that are coming up here. I mean, because I watched that Auburn-Alabama game yesterday. I was blown away. It was very well done. And then Kansas and West Virginia, that came down to the last two minutes, and that was a blast. And I feel like right now, if you're not watching college basketball, you're not enjoying sports. I know that the SFL is out there and, spring training starts soon here. But, look, March Madness is one of the best times of the year. And I want to see college basketball being played like I have right now. Because these last 5 weeks have been fantastic. And I know people talk about Tobacco Road, battle. And I feel bad that North Carolina's probably not going to be in the tournament. But it doesn't matter. Sometimes you need that parity. You need that change. It works for the NFL. It works for baseball. It works for the NHL. Let's see what happens. I want to see San Diego State. I want to see how tough this team is, really, because they don't have that strong of a schedule. Louisville has come to life. They got UCLA that is still 40 with the bracket bubble right now. And I can't wait to see these tournaments. I think these are going to be really exciting. And I think we're hitting the right time here to get excited for college basketball. That's all.
Well, I hate to burst your bubble, Jake, but I'm not watching college basketball. And what did you say? That I'm not enjoying sports, but I got other things to do with the company that I ain't really got the time for it. So, hate to burst your bubble, Mr. Ron Holt, okay? But, I got to create space for guys like you who are going to get those jobs at the major networks and make sure that I had to do what Chuck Daly did with the Pistons back in the Bad Boys days. I got to shuffle minutes, man. I got to go out there and make sure all of my peeps are happy, and I got to get it in front of a lot of people. So am I enjoying sports? Well, I think so, although I will have to admit my first college basketball game I've seen all year was Florida Atlantic against FIU, and of course we were like covering it. And then if you really want to see a good college basketball game on ESPN3 or whatever it is, we got a dandy and Davy when you have Nova Southeastern University taking on Florida Southern, and that's going to be a heck of a game too. So you might want to think about maybe some of these people not enjoying sports, but I got bigger fish to swallow, my friend.
Hey, I mean, we're in the dead zone of sports right now, and I mean, it's just good to see that college basketball still is feeling pure right now, because a lot of the national guys are not really into it right now, and it kind of shocks me, because I was looking at the top 10, and I'm game for it. I mean, also, keep in mind, we have UCLA, and who is the coach of UCLA? Mick Cronin.
I actually know that.
We are in for a first-round exit, the classic Cronin exit. Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Well, I gotta tell you this. You talked about what, West Virginia and Kansas, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, we had a guy on our Sports Exchange special, Jim Crutchfield, who's the coach for Nova Southeastern University, who coached you ever heard of him?
No, please tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, West Liberty, which was a West Virginia school. And, he actually had ties with Bob Huggins for West Virginia. And, when you go ahead and hopefully you'll tune into the broadcast about Nova Southeastern University, you'll find that Coach Crutchfield is this guy here. Get this, Jake. Going into this year, that's what I love about our format. But you think about Coach Crutchfield for a moment. Going into this season, he had a 405 and 75 mark with an 844 winning percentage at the Division II level. Now, we'll give you the particulars about him, okay? He inherits a program that was 6-20, and in less than 12 months on the job, the program improves by 11 wins, and he takes the team to a 17-10 mark his first year. And if you want act number 2 during his second year, here you go, 29-4, and they went as high as number 3 in the country. And now this year they're 18-2 going into this Saturday matchup where their number 5 and number 6 is Florida Southern, based out of Lakeland, and we're going to be covering that showdown here with the South Florida Tribune and South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. So, there's a lot of good talent, and not only Division I, but Division II. But one of his bigger influence is...
I mean, you're talking to a guy who covered, Rollins College for the last year and a half. And
right.
It's a blast to watch guys like Tom Klusman and, Glenn Wilkes for the women's basketball. And I love it how everybody keeps forgetting about, just how pure Division II sports has become. I mean, I could not get enough. I got excited when I got to do volleyball games, when I got to do soccer games. And the Rollins softball team was the most fun I had all year with Rollins sports. And it's just a blast to watch these girls, watch these guys just give it everything they got. They know that they don't have the national spotlight, but they got the sport in hand, and that's what they want to do while they try to create their futures. And that's one of my favorite things about it.
Well, let me give you another example about an unknown coach. And actually, ready for this one?
Yep.
University of Wisconsin Whitewater, what are they, a Division III school?
Yep, Division III.
Yeah, that's right. You're a Wisconsin guy. You ought to know. I forgot that I'm dealing with a Wisconsin guy on the other end, at least, or whatever it is. But meanwhile, a guy by the name of Lance Leopold led him to a lot of championships, who's coaching at the University of Buffalo. I don't know whether Leopold, you're talking about a coach who went from Division III to Division I in the Mid-American Conference, and they think that he was going to duplicate his success there. I don't know. But the reality is these coaches can come from anywhere and be successful. I'm still waiting to see Leopold take the Buffalo program to such a level where he gets a bigger time coaching job. I really am. But, I don't care where these coaches come from, whether Division 2, 3, whatever. If you can flat out coach, you can flat out coach. And having Coach Jim Crutchfield on the program tonight really makes Saturday's game a lot more interesting, unquestionably, to watch. So
should be a phenomenal game, especially in especially in the Sunshine State Conference.
Oh yeah.
And and the funny thing is, before I got to Orlando and I was part of the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting, I was blown away by these programs. I mean, just like watching the Tampa Spartans play and Nova Southeastern play, and it's been crazy. And being part of Rollins, because I didn't know what to expect. I was like, okay, Division 2, cool. What is this all about? And man, the majority of the games, whether what sport, they were just exciting, and I couldn't get enough of it. And I liked that there were small attendances there too, and it just felt completely different, and it just felt like this underground aspect of talent that was around these teams, and it was just a blast.
Well, we've got another one in our backyard that obviously we promote as well. Lynn University, the Fighting Knights, are a pretty good program out of Boca Raton. Yeah, they we promote them quite a bit. So we have a lot of good ones in our area. But the only time I've ever seen Lynn's men's hoops was when they played exhibition games against Florida Atlantic University. And they played competitive. And at that time, Mike Jarvis was the coach of FAU. And Mike Jarvis didn't hesitate to spank Lynn. They wanted it so bad, and then they eventually discontinued the series. But I'll tell you what, though, we got some pretty good Division II teams here in the area. When you talk about Nova Southeastern University, you talk about Lynn University. And, to show my age, I'll never forget when Nova Southeastern University was so much smaller, and Broward Community College was right down the street. But now you go back to Nova Southeastern University, much bigger. I think their arena holds 5,000, but they're expecting about anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 on Saturday, and Lynn has a pretty good program. So it's really neat to have an opportunity to talk about these unique programs to complement some of the other things, and all because you talked about college basketball, me not being interested in sports, which is what got this conversation sparked in the first place. But meanwhile,
you gotta love it. It's the best thing about radio is that sometimes you feel like the interview is going to go down the road you want it to, and then sometimes it veers off another direction, but it actually becomes just as interesting.
So are you going to sit here and tell me now that I'm still not into sports after telling you that? Well, I don't know if that's a laugh or whether the laugh appears in Webster's dictionary. I'm trying to figure it out here with you, Mr. Rongholt.
It's more of a laugh / you're right.
Okay.
You're
right.
All right.
I was talking about Division 1, and I forgot about how fun Division 2 college basketball was. So.
Boy, I'll tell you one thing, man. That's a good comeback. So I guess, with all due respect, who was it? Was it Vanessa Williams? Is that what her name is?
Vanessa Williams, yes.
All right, well, save the best for last. How about that? What little movie? What few songs I know about the artistry, of what we have. So now we're talking about Vanessa Williams saving the best for last, and I forgot that we had two clowns on the program named Rick Curti and Louis Addeo-Weiss earlier. So we have entertainment cornered on this Sports Exchange in so many different ways here on the network. So with that said, okay, Jake, why don't you go ahead and take 30 or 40 seconds, whatever you need to promote your brand. Go for it, pal.
All right, very quick. It's called Turning Points, where we tell both sides of the story. We get guests on that tell that as well. We've had Chris Krause of Hoops Rumors. We've had Alex Fleming of the Florida Sun and the Magic Perspective. We've had that on there, too. We have just been having a blast creating this. We got a small audience, but for some of the people that just tune in, I really do greatly appreciate it. Also, keep in mind, I am a movie fan, so we have done our cinematic escape of our top 10 best movies of 2019. We've done our worst movies, and then we're going to have a couple of reviews coming up next Monday that is going to include Birds of Prey, Joker, and several others. So we are just getting warmed up here in the Turning Points podcast. We navigate through a land of hot takes, and we decide to create our own property and make it into both sides of the story.
Well, now that you've talked about movies, maybe what I'll have to do is I have a meeting with the new co-host of the South Florida Tribune podcast named Lynn LaSalle. So we might bring you on once in a while for a guest appearance to let you talk about movies. How does that sound?
Sounds amazing. I love movies. I love talking about them, and I feel like not many people did what Siskel and Ebert do, which is I look at movies strictly as entertainment. If you entertain me, I'm going to praise it. If you don't entertain me, I might as well just start writing a review in my head. So.
Well, as far as my ability to handle movies, it's a situation that my significant other just puts her hand right over her head. And, I've been with you for 7 years, and you've never even made it in a movie theater. Little does a woman realize how many times I've been told to shut up inside of a movie theater because I think the darn things out loud. So,
I can imagine watching one with you at home. I get the impression.
Exactly. So getting me to sit in movie theater is like getting me to wear a tie. It's a very difficult thing to do, although I have worn a tie a whole lot more than watching a movie in a theater, though that's not saying very much either.
Let's face it, when we even go to any sporting event, I can't go as a fan because I can't sit and watch a game. I need to be up in the press box talking to people and writing and getting material. I can't sit there as a fan and do nothing.
Well, I can. It's a creature of habit. Now, anytime she gets me to go to Burnside or whatever you call that place up in Wisconsin, I don't even know what this place is called.
Fireside.
Oh, well, that's close enough. But, and then we went to Branson and did those performances. That was a struggle for me, man. I'm used to being the act instead of having to watch somebody else do what I love to do anyways. But
it's trying to expose you to some different culture.
Well, next on Marriage Story.
Huh?
Nothing. I said next on Marriage Story.
Oh, that's okay. I enjoy these marriage stories, especially when they're real. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, we're only talking about it because we're on the heels of Valentine's Day, so I hope a lot of you people out there, Jake and I, Candy, want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. And since we're talking about movies anyways, what's the difference anyhow? But I'm just telling you that my Achilles heel is sitting in the theater, keeping my mouth shut, because it's really hard to do. If you think that's going to happen, you might as well put duct tape on my mouth, which my father-in-law once said you ought to do that when you're trying to go ahead and study for the 215 license, which, by the way, I did go ahead and pass. I haven't used it much for life and health annuities, but that's for another story, another day. But since I have a meeting tomorrow with Lynn LaSalle, I'll bring up Jake Rongholt here, and we won't have no shortage of good guests. I'll let you go ahead and get your movie thing there. But, duct tape, muzzle in my mouth, it don't make a lick of difference. It's all about entertainment and having fun with anyhow. So.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so any final thoughts here, Jake Rongholt?
No, I'm good to go, and I'm looking forward to see what happens this weekend. We've got some XFL, we've got some college basketball going. They're in the final stretch before those tournaments begin, and I'm really excited to see how Nova Southeastern and Florida Southern end up.
Yeah, well, don't forget the Daytona 500. So, meanwhile...
St. Patrick's School of Sportscasting was there, actually, this week, so they were doing some interviews.
All right, well, then all I can say is on behalf of Jim Crutchfield, who did the special edition of the Sports Exchange earlier, and to our regular edition of the Sports Exchange, I want to thank Bo Sheck, a new guest of the program, referred by Louis Addeo-Weiss, and Louis Addeo-Weiss, who was on here earlier, and Rick Curti, who was our resident and
second clown
and antagonist, and then David Levin, Bill Winters, and last but not least, the closer, Jake Rongholt. I want to thank you very much for listening to the program tonight, and we look forward to doing better next week here on the Sports Exchange. Have a great night, Jake. Well done. Candy, thanks for being in here as well, and we'll go out there and lace them up next week.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Good night, everybody.